This is your chance to get behind the wheel. The opportunity to race just like the pros. From the grassroots levels, where we all got our start, to the most popular race cars on the planet. From the fairgrounds of Nashville to the high banks of Daytona, to tracks that will never be forgotten. Realistic driving, intense competition, all from the comfort of your own home. This is the ultimate motorsports simulation. This is iRacing.
Welcome everyone back to SimSpeed TV. It comes time once again to return to the Majors Series. The 13th round of the 2022 season starts tonight here in the international region, with one more round to come after the racing today. And it's our final chance to see some road course racing action here, despite the fact that we are at the Daytona International Speedway. Welcome to the Classic Daytona 2.4 this afternoon. My name is Daniel Gaiman, Jay Kennedy alongside me on production and commentary. Unfortunately, missing Reese Gardner from his usual ability to be with us this evening. Jay, hopefully we'll be able to have him back in the commentary box in relatively short order, but we'll have to make do as a duo for this evening.
Yeah, hello everyone, and shout out to Reese, who's had a bit of technical issues himself over the last couple of days. It's not been a good little period for some of the SimSpeed crew, but tonight's racing, this is one of my favourite combos within the iRacing service. Every time we've done a classic Daytona 2.4, it has been brilliant. Looking forward to seeing how the classic GTO, GTP class cars from 1998 tackle the amazing Daytona International Speedway.
It will be one to watch here tonight indeed. We'll have a quick look here at the track map at Daytona International Speedway. 5.7 kilometers of racetrack thanks to the infield layout there, along with the use of basically all of the speedway here at Daytona. 2 horseshoe hairpins at turns 3 and 5. The run back onto the oval at turn 6. And a little bus stop on the backstretch, now formerly the Le Mans chicane, turns 8, 9, 10, 11 there as well. And of course, critically coming in, VMAX on the approach to turn 1 there, Jay. Hard on the brakes as you bring it down off the oval and make sure you negotiate the transition back to the flat. Thankfully, of course, the track does help you out there with a fairly flat front stretch once you're back through that tri-oval phase at the start-finish line, but certainly still can be quite easy to overshoot there, and that's going to be critical over the course of the evening. Start your lap right there at turn number 1.
Yeah, I think the toughest part of turn 1 is you're turning, coming off the banking onto the flat. That's tough enough, but you're also turning, braking, and trying to get yourself lined up for the turn at turn 1. So it is a very, very difficult corner to do in GT3 cars. We've seen in NASCAR Cup cars when they did the race here not that long ago, in 2021 that was. It's a really difficult spot to get the car slowed down for. In these old school cars with not amazing brakes, I mean, we're using late 80s technology for our cars tonight, so it's going to be really difficult there, especially when they're approaching the Nissans we're seeing approaching at 315 odd kilometers an hour, and the Audis around about 285. So it's going to be really, really quick coming into there. The real danger spot of the track. The other point around this track and this race tonight is it is multi-class. So you have to be really careful and really strategic with traffic management.
You will have to be indeed. And on top of it being multi-class racing here on the road, we've also got ourselves the 2 classes of majors competition here this evening. First up, we're going to have a quick look at our Pro Championship standings coming into the action tonight. 12 rounds out of 14 complete so far this year, and it is officially down to a 2-horse race between Robert Northway there in first and Thomas Hinz trying to chase him down there in second with that 90-point margin between them. And, well, it's going to be needed a lot of work from Thomas Hinz to get that one back here tonight. Thanks to the team at the Major Series who are able to give us a bit of information. The long and short of it really is that Hinz needs to win both tonight's race here at Daytona, Jay, as well as then win the finale at Homestead, Miami in a couple of weeks' time. Robert Northway just needs to sit around in the top 5. A P2 and a P5 can do it for Northway to the end of the season. A win tonight will seal the deal. And he's been fast all season long, of course, and currently on the pace in that Nissan GTB ZXT class as well. So, yeah, Hinsy's got his work cut out for him here, I'd say, tonight. But certainly can't count anything out when you've got a little mini enduro to get yourself through here this evening, Jay.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Hinsy's to play for, isn't it? If he wins the race, the season goes on to the last round. If he doesn't win, the championship's over, essentially. I mean, it's not if Northway doesn't win, but looking at the field, they've been the two standouts throughout the entire championship. They'd have to be favourites to win tonight, one of those two, but stranger things have happened in the majors. Like when we look at the Sportsman Championship now, we've got so many drivers within a chance of winning this championship that we don't know what's going to happen, and that's what we love about this series, is it's really open coming up right to the end. 5 potential drivers that could win this championship.
That there is indeed. Julian Mookie leads the way, but only by 16 points from Dave Trevethan. And then the fact you got Joshua Robertson, another 4 points back from Dave there. Really tight top 3, but we can also count Chaston Teets and Phil Otto in the hunt. Those top 5 covered by 87 points going into the action this evening. So indeed, keep your eyes on those guys. We'll point them out across the course of the race because, as I said, it means we've got ourselves races within races tonight because we're going to be scoring on both the classes in the server, when it comes to the vehicles, then the classes for the Majors series here as well. So as we come into the final couple of minutes of practice, let's take a look here at the drivers out on track and the vehicles they'll be piloting this evening. As you said, Jay, the peak of 1980s GT and prototype style racing. And in saying that, the Audi 90 GTO here, as driven by Dan Stevens and Shane Bowen directly behind, this was certainly a fully fledged race car. 2.5 litre 5-cylinder turbocharged engine worked up by the boys back at Audi's Quattro, and also the Audi Quattro powertrain and drivetrain behind this thing, but 700 horsepower from a 5-cylinder, thanks to a massive, gigantic turbocharger, as was apparently apt for the era. Means got a lot of turbo boost and a lot of turbo wind up that needs to happen here. So the lag, if you get the revs stuck down low in some of those corners, such as turn 6 there, do add up. And given they've only got a 5-speed gearbox, they will certainly be low in the revs. With the slipstream tonight, also going to be important. No surprises there at Daytona. You're seeing cars making good runs around the banking here, Jay.
Yeah, exactly right. It's an amazing car, and it was probably one of the most hyped releases, not for the fact of what these cars were, but the way that iRacing hyped up their release was incredible. So I want to shout out to iRacing how good a job they did on those videos to hype these cars when they came out back in, I think it was 2016, from memory. I'm saying that with a big question mark over my head, but they've proven to have such a real niche love within the iRacing community. As I said before, this has been one of my favorite combos within the Majors series. We did it the first year we covered the Majors, and I think we've done it pretty much every second year, and it's always a brilliant race when we get to this one. So bring it on. If you've never seen these things race before, you are in for a wild ride. It is going to be an incredible watch and an incredible listen.
It is indeed. Big noises, high speeds. This is peak race car, as some might say, at least one of the generations of peak race car when it comes to noise and thrills. And well, before we get to the race server, of course, got to mention the other car class here tonight. The Nissan GTP ZX Turbo, going to be our top flight vehicle for the evening. And if you thought 700 horsepower from a 2.5 litre turbocharged 5-cylinder was pretty impressive for the Audi 90, well, this Nissan takes it up another notch. It goes up to a 3 litre V6 with its own gigantic turbo strapped to the back of that one thing. But this monster produces nearly 800 horsepower at peak RPM, and as a result, got itself a 5-speed gearbox as well, but less than 1 ton of curb weight on these vehicles. Absolutely monstrous power down in these cars. And one final thing before we get to the grid. Of course, Major Series continuing to support charities from around the world, and all today's action here at the Classic Daytona 2.4. We say thanks and support Forever Footprints, who have been working to help those who have lost pregnancies and infant children unexpectedly and unfortunately. They're formed back in 2005 and now going 18 years strong from Southern California to across the world there with Forever Footprints. So please make sure to check out the supported charity of this round over there at foreverfootprints.org. Well, Jay, it's time now to head to the grid as the drivers begin to get themselves set up and ready to race today. And, well, didn't quite show it in practice here this afternoon before the race got underway, but pre-qualifying times mean that it will be Thomas Hinz to start this race from the pole position, but he has Robert Northway right alongside him there. So those two, as they've been all season long, will be leading us to the start of this race this evening. Joshua Thomas and Dwayne Burns starting out of third and fourth place. I have David Turnbull and Gavin Barber behind them on the third row of the GTP class today. Row 4 will be held by Dean Mole and Craig Tilson. Nick McMillan and Phil Otto out of 9th and 10th this afternoon. With Adrian Stefan and Jake Fox to round out our top 12 here today.
Yeah, from there, the last of our Nissan GTP runners will be Adam Preston, Julian Mookie, Connor Brown, and James Catchpole. Then we've got Shane Bowen starting on pole with Daniel Stevens. Those guys were very, very evenly matched in practice and also practiced quite a lot of bump drafting with each other. So that'll be interesting to watch throughout this 145-minute race. Row 10, Alexander Sheridan with Jonathan Ben alongside Josh Robertson and Simon Francis, and then Matt Chalker rounding out our 23 car field for tonight's race. As I said, 145 minutes of racing, 2.4 hours. This is going to be a very, very entertaining night of racing.
I'm sure it will be there. You also saw, I can tell you now, the delta, I should say, between our guys at the front of the GTP class and the front of the GTO class. We're looking at around 11 seconds per lap, maybe 12. So that will be important to note there. It means that we'll have some time before the GTPs catch the GTOs. But we'll talk about that later. Pace car rolls off the lane. Hinz goes basically as soon as he can. We go green here at Daytona. And look at that there. Hinz is already checked out by a good 4 or 5 car lengths into turn 1.
Yeah, he's just broken away. And I don't think anyone was too stressed in that group behind as the front of the GTO class gets underway, and they look like they're going to get through relatively clean as well. Not too much shuffling for position. Everyone's trying to get themselves single file very, very quickly. These cars are difficult to get off the line and get away, but everyone's done a very, very good job. Got themselves in a single file, made sure there's been no contact through the first couple of corners clean. That's great to see.
Indeed, and unfortunately, I have to note, Jay, things are going pretty decently here on the start. We seem to be one man down indeed. Gavin Barber in the number 25 Middle Finger Racing car was meant to be part of the GTP class this afternoon. Has not yet taken to the race start, so unfortunately for him, he is not out there on track just yet. As you saw there, Phil Otto in the 013, one of our sportsman class drivers in that Nissan GTP today. Unfortunately, had a moment there going into turn number 6, but gathers it back up for the run to the bus stop for the first time. And just checking in there with the GTO cars for a second, but back up to these GTPs because we had David Turnbull just try and hang it around the outside of Craig Tilson, and our D-Mole looking to line up Tilson here on the run to the start-finish line. But on board with Turnbull, he's out of the slipstream here, Jay, and look at the field, race on down and catch him up in a straight line here. Approaching indeed, 310 for D-Mole in third in line. Tilson already at 310 now, and he's going to get nose ahead. And Turnbull's come to turn 1 for the second time in this part of the pack here. Side by side into the corner. It will be Turnbull on the inside to hang on there. The 54 of Adrian Stefan not able to hang it around the outside. He'll drop back in behind the number 8 of Nick McMillan for a moment here. Up to the International Horseshoe. They come once more.
And Stefan was getting the double, almost triple draft down the front straight. Past the start-finish line, he clocked in at 316 kilometres an hour, the fastest of anyone in this group. So incredible speeds going on. At the front of the GTO class, they stayed pretty much as they were. A little bit of shuffling back behind Sheridan, Robertson, and I believe that's Matt Chalker getting involved in a little bit of a an altercation, a little bit of side by side, a little bit of rubbing, but they've all got through okay. Everyone has survived except for Gavin Barber, who unfortunately did not take to the start. Thomas Hinzo has already got out to nearly 1 second.
Yes, indeed. That won't be out of draft range. Just oh my, he's got 3 wide further on back, Jay.
Oh, no.
In the GTPs. My goodness, Stefan trying to chase up. We had Tilson.
Oh,
Car off in the bus stop. Josh Thomas in the 386 has gone around. Dean Mole around there on the pitches here in the 31 machine on entry. As several cars coming unstuck. And the 54 of Stefan finds itself buried in the tyres here at the bus stop. It's all gone crazy here in the mid-pack of the GTP class. Time to jump to our first virtual racing school replay and see just what on earth has unfolded here coming into the bus stop. And first up is J.M. Thomas here in the 386 and unfortunately goes in too hot, grabs the inside and the rear end says no thank you. And it's all by himself. And then came this battle pack that I wanted to get eyes on because, yeah, look at this here in front of Stefan. I believe it was Dean Mole along with, oh goodness, I wish I could tell you, but a bit hard to tell right now. And, Stefan too deep on the brakes, has to slam on them and lock up into the fence, and then tried to go through there and just ran straight into the tyre bundles, it would seem. As there's a Mole down on the bottom there in the 31 machine. Got the 022. Yeah, Mole just tapped there. I think it was the number 8 machine I saw. Should be of Nick McMillan. His car there, unfortunately, just trying to make sure there was space to the outside, but didn't quite leave space on the inside there as we go back to live pictures and you can see several drivers heavily damaged as someone spun up the... Oh, goodness me, the number 8, Nick McMillan's gone around out of turn number 6 there. So more dramas in GTP here on laps 2 and 3. And more 3-car action here. This time it's going to be Craig Tilson, Jake Fox, Julian Mookie, and, well, Adam Preston is back of the shot here. So we could have 4 cars fighting it out into the bus stop. They are going to sort themselves out single file. Tilson, Mookie, Fox, then Preston. This time by here at the end of lap number 3. Back up to the front of the field for a second, though, Jay, and here it is. Lead down to 0.3 of a second. Northway well and truly back in the draft here now.
Yep, draft is playing big advantages for Robert Northway as he dropped it below 0.7 of a second, was able to close it right up out of the Le Mans chicane, the bus stop chicane. I can't get used to not calling it the Le Mans chicane. I mean, sorry, can't get used to calling it the Le Mans chicane. It'll always be the bus stop. I'll do my best. It's Dwayne Burns has come along for the ride too. He was right up underneath the rear wing of Northway coming into turn 1, but I think he's just content watching, waiting, and maybe planning when he can get this move done.
I think you've got that one spot on there. If you can ride with those top 2 today, that's probably going to be a good option indeed. Unfortunately, the 54 of Adrian Stefan heavily damaged from everything that happened there at the start. Actually doesn't have a mechanical black flag at the moment, Jay, so that is good to see, but does have some heavy damage, and I think that's the second time for him down on the lane, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So short repairs, though, 9.5 seconds for Stefan. So maybe not.
He has taken his spare car.
There we go. So fast repair and a top up there for the 54.
And also, Joshua Thomas has come in to serve his...
An iRacing black flag.
Yeah, he got an iRacing black flag. So I'm going to guess his sped on pit exit may have released the pit limiter button a little bit, or pit limiter too early. There is a pit limiter in this, yes? No.
I wish I could tell you. I actually have only driven this car during the iRacing test drive periods in maintenance happens as on for the lead as we come across the line. Here, there's half a tenth, pardon me, ahead. And they come into the braking zone. Look at Northway fighting the car on the outside under brakes. Having to really work it down there into turn number 1 as there's your first battle pack of 3. Here's the second battle pack of 3. Tilson hanging on just ahead of Mookie and Fox as they come on down to turn 1. Oh my goodness, Mookie tries to cut underneath just as Tilson tries to open up the corner entry there, and my goodness, that nearly went horrendously wrong for all involved. He's going to show the nose again here into the International Horseshoe, does Mookie, but no, not far enough to challenge a move there. Tilson pulls it up nicely as they then make their way down here, but Tilson looks slow there. Does he miss a gear shift perhaps on the way out of the Horseshoe? Of course, manual H-pattern gearboxes in these cars, so if you aren't running an H-pattern, or even if you are, you still have to lift out of the throttle at the very minimum as you pull the upshift. Here is it was on further in the background of that shot, but here are your top 2 in Sportsman.
Change the lead.
Sportsman, GTO class, and indeed, Shane Bowen now leading Daniel Stevens as they head across the line towards turn number 1 once again. So these two really locked into running line astern here and working together over the course of this race, if anything, this early part is to go by. We see on board here Daniel Stevens, thanks to the Zoom webcam feed, and Stevens now able to put that H-pattern gearbox on his rig to good use, and see having to work all the pedals here as they make their way through the infield. It's on with that group in GTP once again as they come onto the banking. I think Tilson's had an absolute shocker of a run through the bus stop, Jay, because he's dropped in behind Mookie and Jake Fox. Adam Preston trying to line up a move here, and we've also got James Catchpole at the back of the group. So make it 5 GTP cars as Preston, with the run around the outside, I think either rolls out there through the tri-oval or loses the slipstream and the side draft. But Sai alongside Fox there into turn 1, and they all scramble just to make sure they don't run into each other there. It is hectic here, and these guys are fighting over 5th place on the road here today, Jay. So it's all kinds of interesting, to say the least.
There's 7-8 cars in this group, which is incredible considering how difficult these cars are to drive. I mean, these are not beginner cars. So some of these drivers in Sportsman may not have had the most experience in driving these style of cars. To get thrown in the deep end, put in a battle pack like this, and to keep it as clean and composed as Phil Otto runs off the circuit. Otto's no stranger to these cars. He's raced in this race before in the majors, but yeah, these guys are doing a really good job considering how tightly bunched up they were. We also saw at the start of the lap there too, Hins, Northway, Burns, they were separated by literally a tenth. There was nothing between all three of them.
It's getting all kinds of crazy close out there on the road as we check in with the top 3. As they're already heading around turns 3, NASCAR 3 and 4 here at the end of the lap. And down to the front straight away we come once more.
Notice Hims has got his foot on the clutch here. Very rarely see him use the clutch.
So we see here the ZX Turbo here, the Nissan GTP class car. You can afford to skip the clutch. We just see here pedal cam with Thomas Hins from the race. So you see here on the upshift, so he has to come out of the throttle momentarily, then do it. Left foot brake, right foot blip. And then watch here once again on the way out of the turns. There's the lift there. Has to disengage the throttle to get the gear shift to work on the way up. So a lot of manual footwork required in both classes of car here tonight. And well, to my knowledge with the Audi GTO class, it actually requires the use of the clutch. There is no getting away with that. And the other drivers on Zoom this evening will be Shane Bowen here. We can actually see Shane running virtual reality headset, meaning we actually get to see over the shoulder here this afternoon, so we're able to see
the clutch work
footwork
too.
There. Yeah, you can see the footwork indeed down the bottom. We also see the H-pattern shifter at work on the left side of the rig as well. Actually, is that set up in sequential mode today? I think it is.
Yeah, he's got it set in sequential, but
yep.
Interesting, he has to use the clutch going both directions, so up and down the gears. We've seen with the Nissan no clutch or some drivers using clutch, but interesting that you're using the clutch in both directions on the gearbox. It's something you don't see very often in modern motorsport. And watch again, there you go. Using the clutch to go back down the gears, and then when he comes out of the corner, he'll have to use the clutch again to make sure it engages. We've heard from a few drivers that are nice enough to send us information about the race and about strategy and about fuel conservation, that if you can get away without blipping the throttle and are good enough to actually use the clutch to change your gears, that can save you a lap of fuel over a stint. Incredible how much fuel just blipping the throttle actually burns.
Certainly is, especially when you get down the gears, you start putting bigger blips in some cases, to really try and make sure that that gear engages correctly. As
become the leaders.
The leaders in GTP are coming for the leaders in GTO, and we just missed it because we were talking about the GTO class and that strategy there in general, but side by side across the line between Hins and Northway on that previous lap. It's side by side there between Tilson and Nick McMillan, and also James Catchpole here as well there in the 021 machine. And you can see here trying to find every little bit of grip and momentum they can pick up here. Catchpole going to lose out there for the time being as they then make their way out onto the oval here. The top 2 in both classes now, as Hins will lead Northway around Stevens and Bowen there in our GTO. So there we are. Took us almost 13 minutes, but the GTO class is now 1 lap down on the GTPs.
Amazing how quickly that has happened, isn't it? So, not quite as close this lap by across the start-finish line, but yeah, 12 and a half minutes and the field's already been lapped. That shows you the pace that these things have got. Now, I'm not really up with modern pace of prototypes at Daytona, but they're definitely not as quick these days as what the...
Oh, trouble further on back at turn 1.
Tilson.
Julian Mookie and Jake Fox have come together
Oh, no.
in the braking zone. And, on the exit of the corner. Oh,
That's
dear,
Tilson.
one of the GTPs, Craig Tilson, the 022, side by side with, I think it was Nick McMillan, and unfortunately for Tilson, he's been rather particularly unblessed there.
There's been multiple things that have gone on, actually. We need to rewind here. This is the first replay. So that's Dean Mole having an issue.
That explains why he showed up on my timing order with a mechanical black flag. He's also dropping from the server. And then here is this, a Jake Fox, Julian Mookie under brakes into turn 1. Mookie covering the inside. Jake Fox all kinds of loose on the outside there and actually picks up Mookie's car for a second. Then watch here, we've got, I believe it's McMillan and Tilson. Yeah, they are side by side and a little contact. Spears Tilson to the fence, and then Nick just gets completely jammed in there. So 2 GTP cars taking mechanical black flags on that particular lap.
I'm wondering if Dean Moles may have been a technical issue, because it just continued to turn right, didn't it? It never looked like it was going to stop and go back to the left. So you're saying he was having some technical issues in regards to connection to the server. Maybe the technical issues were a little bit deeper. Maybe a PC issue, and that's why he's had those secondary issues. But Tilson and Mole have had to escape back to the pits. They'll use their spare cars and go again. That means 4 out of our 22 have already used a spare car. We're only 15 minutes in.
Yeah, it's getting frantic out there. And unfortunately, that was for the most part lone driver moments there as we check back in with the top 3 in GTP as they work their way out of the second of the horseshoes here to turn 6 to make the re-entry to the oval for NASCAR turns 1 and 2. Nick McMillan's had a moment down at the International Horseshoe. I think by himself he'll lose a spot to James Catchpole as he regathers a car, and Phil Otto as well. So back down to P8 in class there for the number 8 machine. I'll just go have a quick look at what's happened there as you stay live on the pictures, because yeah, not looking too crazy. And well, there's Jonathan Bean. Again, one of our...
We've lost Baby Cam. We had Baby Cam just before and I missed it. Apologies for not getting Baby Cam going, but yeah, Jonathan Ben had a couple of spectators in watching over his shoulder before. Always cool to see that he has a family watching. Back on for the lead.
It is. It's continuously on for the lead, but Northway surely biding his time at this point in the race. You wouldn't be this close and not in the lead if
well,
he
not even
wasn't
attempting.
Happy.
Yeah. He's in fuel save mode and just using hins as a way to get around. Just stick with him. Save, if he can save a lap of fuel now, that could be the difference when it comes time for splash and dash later on. Just on that, in the Nissan, they will have to pit 3 times, 2 full tanks and a splash and dash. Whether they take tyres in the splash and dash is probably the key question, because the tyres will not get covered by the splash and dash, the amount of fuel that they'll need in that last stop. But tyres at every stop for both classes before then. But yeah, the final stop in the Nissan, will they stop and take a set of tyres when they splash for fuel? That is going to be very, very interesting to see.
Indeed. We'll be keeping our eyes on that one. A quick update on Nick McMillan in the number 8. Unfortunately, the error down at the International Horseshoe was simply outbraking himself to clear a GTO class car on the way into the turn. So unfortunately there, it was completely self-inflicted. As we continue to watch this top 3 here in the GTP class. On board with the man in P3, Dwayne Burns. Number 19 for Kinetic Avatar Race. You can see here at about half a second back, he's actually losing time ever so slightly to Robert Northway, because Northway is ranging up right to the rear bumper. And now, as Northway rolls out of the throttle, we'll watch that interval gap creep on down inside half a second between Northway and Burns. And then easing it into the corner there, these guys. As it's also on further on back, Julian Mookie and Jake Fox, still going at it. We'll check in with those guys later as a replay once again, this time for Phil Otto. And again, actually at turn 5 here, Jay. That's the second time I've seen Phil Otto go deep and run it wide. And this time...
The last time he didn't loop it. Yeah, this time he's done the loop. So yeah, it's there's a lot going on right now. And the battle for the lead in GTO is well and truly heated. I think this is exactly what we were talking about before with Northway. I think Dan Stevens is doing the same. Content sitting there watching, waiting, and letting Shane Bowen lead while he saves fuel.
No big surprises there. Once again, if you can sit in second and make the most of it, then go nuts and save fuel while you can. You can see here they've got Nick McMillan behind trying to weave his way through in the Kinetic Avatar number 8 machine. And
where do you go?
McMillan, thankfully, not willing to challenge it. As you can see here, these Audis quite grip limited through the kink there on the infield. Really, we're using all of the track there. You can see Bowen actually missing the apex of turn 5, and then Stevens slow on the exit. Very slow on the exit there, Daniel Stevens. What on earth happened there to drop him all that way back as Bowen then runs very wide through turn 6?
I'm going to say a misshift.
Yeah,
for sure.
That would definitely be a misshift. Yeah, of course. It's like usually you don't have to think. We cover usually more modern series. I don't usually think about that, but actually, yeah. So these cars, very much a case of, well, they can be easily misshifted. That would explain a lot. Craig Tilson back out on the road, which is good to see. Unfortunately for him, he is now 2 laps down on your race leaders, and it looks like he also, well, actually, pardon me, he probably took the fast repair because pit time.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
3 minutes. Actually, yeah, fast repair taken, and then another 20 odd seconds of getting back out of the pits, I should say. Dean Mole still on the lane. I don't think we'll be seeing the number 31 back out there today, unfortunately.
I think Dean has unfortunately not had his spare car selected as he escaped back to the pits. It started repair on the actual damage to the car as opposed to using that spare.
Yeah, that is definitely a rough situation indeed, and one you have to make sure you're careful about. It's also on here for P3. Yes, it is, pardon me, P3 in the
change of position
class. And it's Alexander Sheridan going around and Jonathan Bean there. So the number 5 and the 019 trading places. So Kinetic Avatar leads Middle Finger Racing, both 1, 2 and 3, 4. Adrian Stefan, after that early trouble at the bus stop in that mid-pack group, comes to the lane once more. And he'll actually go a lap down on the race leaders as Robert Northway decides now is the time. 20 minutes and change later into this race, he will take the lead off Thomas Hinz there at turn number 1. And we'll see here, what does Hinz do? The 53 machine now has a chance to tuck in and try and save and maybe get a feel for what the car does here. Is big slide for Northway out of the International Horseshoe. Hinz alongside almost for a moment, but rolls back out, gets back in line and playing the long game here. Both, well, all 3 of them, I should say, is, more trouble. Mick McMillan this time in the number 8 machine. That car has come unstuck.
Oh, this is big.
On chicane. And, well, there you go. The preview from Director Jay Kennedy is big. Let's watch it here on the next of our Virtual Racing School replays.
Yeah, so he's just lost it coming through the middle of the chicane. Look, he turns it in and just too much curbs. Car's unsettled, won't hook to the right, straight off into the wall. No surprise to see he's coming into the pits. As we come back live, new leader again. Thomas Hinz has gone back through.
Well, there you go. Hinsey not willing to hang around and stay behind, which is definitely interesting to see, to say the least. But, well, if he wants to lead from the front of the field, so be it. I think Northway will be fairly happy to sit behind and save some fuel, you would think. We'll watch what he does here down to turn number 1. Yep, sits in behind as they run through the tri-oval. Dwayne Burns ranging on up here as Northway rolls out, and this time he looks to the inside. Gaps there, but came off the throttle a little bit earlier there. Did the 46 of Northway. He'll stay in P2 for now. That will be the order of things.
Burns is in a really good spot here, isn't he? Dwayne Burns is sitting really nicely. Just content to sit that half second back, save fuel, use the draft when he can, not worrying about fighting for position. He is doing really well. He'll be saving bulk fuel. If he can get an extra 2 laps to the tank, he's setting himself up for prime position to overcut these guys later on in the race.
Sure is. I think I'll be curious to see what his fuel savings are like, because he's being dropped by Northway initially when they get onto the banking with the slipstream, but actually this time by 8 tenths back from Thomas Hins. Expect Burns here, should be able to range on up. But again, we'll see here the initial getaway for Northway off of the banking, onto the banking, I should say, and onto the oval is superior to the 46 versus the 19. And then we'll see finally slipstream giving Burns that advantage. So in this particular instance, not going to be much of a game, but Northway really firing the car in that time through the Le Mans chicane. Gained time on the way in, but lost time on the way out. Actually see here, these three drivers all spacing out to about 7 tenths between them each as they roll on down the tri-oval, and we're beginning our second pass of the lap traffic. Your race leader Hint's going to split the middle on two of the Audis there, and Northway's going to get completely bored by it all here as they come into turn number 1. This is the breakaway that Thomas Hins, if he really wants it, is going to get, because look at that there, the 76 of Matt Chalker and Josh Robertson just having their race, and Northway had to wait so long to get on through.
That's heartbreaking for Northway. That is the downside to the strategy of sitting behind someone and just letting them go. So while it's all well and good to push on and just follow someone, let them lead the way, the downside is that if you get stuck with traffic, there's nothing you can do to fix it. Now, we have lost another driver from this race as well. So Adrian Steffens had a moment at the Le Mans chicane. He just clipped the curb on the inside, couldn't straighten the car up, bang into the wall. His race is done, unfortunately. He's already used his spare car, so he is out of tonight's race.
That he is indeed. So another driver down. 20 cars remaining in the session.
Burns is starting to look racy now.
He is looking racy. I think he now knows this is a great chance to, set in for P2 here, because, they've now got to try and catch Thomas Hins, who, thanks to more traffic on this lap for these two drivers, gap up to over 4 seconds. Northway here losing huge amounts of time in that particular run off of the Le Mans chicane, and Dwayne Burns looking to the outside here as we come to the line. It's a good sort of experiment for the drag race, and it looks like he would just have pipped Northway. They've got 3 wide further on back between Francis, Robertson and Chalker, I believe, in the GTOs. Are just behind into turn 1, I should say, and they have sorted themselves out with Francis ahead of Robertson, ahead of Chalker. 256 deep on the brakes there. Just sort themselves out, but he will slot back in behind Chalker there with a better exit for the Koenig Avatar 76 machine, who actually then moves across to cover it under brakes into the International Horseshoe. So these guys, they're very racy here. Lap 15 of the race for these guys here. We've then got next of our GTPs, David Turnbull and Adam Preston looking to find their way through, and Turnbull's going to get the better luck of the draw for the first part of that traffic maneuver, it would seem, and he will get the better part of the second, I would suspect there. As actually, pardon me, Turnbull there on his own by quite some margin.
I think that was Tilson, was it not? Coming back through the field.
That would make some
McMillan potentially.
sense.
Not sure who it was. Have a look at the gap now that Northway is not in draft. It's stretching.
This is fascinating to see. This is indeed very fascinating to see that maybe now we're really seeing something when it comes down to car setup, that Robert Northway has geared a car up that has more downforce today, and so might look after its tyres better in that last part of the race when we're expecting a splash of fuel only, and tyre life might be a point of note there. But yeah, you're right, at this point in the race, Thomas Hins has Robert Northway beat, and now 5 seconds the margin. Dwayne Burns all over the gearbox of the 46 here, content to sit in behind as indeed, there we go, Craig Tilson there as traffic for these two, and then 2 of our Audi 90s, Daniel Stevens and Shane Bowen, your leaders in the GTO class, next here to be negotiated for the second time to complete the GTO lap procession here. And that's taken them another 13, 14 minutes, I think. So obviously, of course, at the start of the race, Jay, the GTPs starting up the road with our GTO leaders waiting and hanging back a bit. So that in part explaining that there. As we see here, Dwayne Burns having to really be gentle, getting past Shane Bowen, and as a result, Robert Northway's turn to break away and get some margin. 1.3 seconds now between them onto the oval once again.
And we're not too far away from pit stops in our Nissan GTP class as well. We're thinking around 26, maybe 27 laps. Currently on their 18th lap. So they're already 2/3 through this fuel stint. So it's we're looking at about 40 minutes to a tank, give or take. So maybe 3 full stops and a 4th splash and dash. So my numbers might be completely wrong. Julian Mookie's just come into the pits already. So yeah, lots of pit stops already. And I honestly wasn't expecting to see stops at this phase of the race. It's Dan Stevens, he's got the momentum to potentially steal the lead away. There he goes, out of the throttle. It's going to save some fuel.
Yeah, we'll see here if he dumps the clutch on the way in. Nope, just going to ride it up there against there's the roll, and there's the downshifts. 4, 3, 2, and then staying there, I believe, in second. But we jump back to Julian Mookie in the pit lane. This one, it's a lengthy stop here in these GTP class cars, as it's gone by 30 seconds for him in the box. 33.9 will be his pit lane time there for the 39 machine.
Which we're thinking around about 40 to 45 seconds for a full tank of fuel. So 33 for 2/3 of a tank. That sort of makes sense. Because we're thinking we're around about 2/3 of a way through a stint. So I think that may be... I'm coming in to change tyres because I know that my tyres are not great, so I'm going to get some stable footing underneath me.
That could indeed be the case, but as you said, Jake, only just hit the 29-minute mark elapsed in this one here today, so that's quite early.
I mean, if you don't have confidence in the car, you're better off bringing it in, changing the tyres, rather than pushing it and then putting it in the wall. So, I mean, I'm all in favour of changing your tyres if you don't think your tyres are good enough.
Yeah, that will be interesting to keep an eye on then if drivers are really having to stretch the limits of the GTP car here this afternoon to make the strategy work for them in that case. Because, well, yeah, as you said, we're on potential here to be seeing some really 3 full stops potentially here. And, well, Mookie doing that obviously will commit him to quite the long phase of this race. It's still around 1.3 seconds there between Robert Northway and Dwayne Burns. And there you go, David Turnbull next of our GTP cars into the lane. 19 laps to his opening stint here this afternoon as the car comes onto the lane at nearly 30 minutes into this race. So
Adam Preston's done a good job. He's gained 8 spots. James Catchpole's up 10 spots. Well, they've still been the biggest movers in the field. Everyone else behind them's had a lot of bad luck, but Preston's about to gain another spot here on Turnbull. So shout out to Adam Preston, leading sportsman as well. Doing a very, very nice job at the moment with some pretty decent pace as well.
He is indeed. For reference, well, actually, that last particular lap, traffic seems to have really...
Yeah, traffic hurt him last lap.
Hurt him there on 137.4, but only about 2 seconds off the best we've seen from Thomas Hinds and Robert Northway and Dwayne Burns up ahead.
Out of the sportsmen, he is has the second fastest lap. Third fastest, sorry. McMillan, Otto, and then Preston.
I see 3 drivers in the 33s. We've got Jake Fox and Phil Otto and Nick Millen all doing 33s at one point. But yeah, P4 on that time in the class. Certainly looking.
He's obviously been the most consistent, hasn't he? He's maintaining the consistency, which is much more important. Remember before too, the next car ahead is Jonathan Ben. Remember we saw Alexander Sheridan come up and pass Ben. Ever since Ben was overtaken, he's stuck with Alexander Sheridan. He hasn't let him out of his sight. This is about the biggest gap that they've had, and it's still at 0.8 of a second, so still draft range. So Jonathan Ben's doing a good job. Doesn't have the outright pace each and every lap on Alexander Sheridan. Doesn't have the qualifying style pace, but the race pace has been really good. They've been lapping almost consistent lap times for the last few laps as well.
It's good to note that indeed, and that is going to be important in the next little part of this race. And yeah, looking at Jonathan's times, 44.7, 45.4, 44.5, 44.7, 44.8, and yeah, just I think has made again, say actually both drivers fairly consistent, and 44.8 for Sheridan on that last one versus a 44.6 for Bean as he ranges up under brakes here. Obviously not close enough to make a move there into turn 1, but certainly well back in the slipstream range once again as it's on again between Chalker, Robertson and Francis. This time it's Chalker's turn to lead them into turn 1. Robertson there deep under brakes once more. Really trying to maximize the braking. You can see here, Chalker actually covering off the inside again. Narrow entry as we jump on board with Simon Francis here in the number 9 machine. And you can see here, getting the upshifts right. This is oh so important. Actually bumps off the limiter there for a second. In, I believe that would have been 3rd gear maybe. And then working the way down the gears here for turn number 5 as, oh, these cars, such a handful. These old cars. Trouble for Connor Brown apparently out on the circuit somewhere, Jay, in that number 51 machine.
How did he end
indeed.
up there?
That's a good question. I'll have a quick look at that one there for us. And oh dear me. This isn't one we've seen too often, but I think unfortunately for Connor Brown, oh my, it's gone horrendously wrong on the entry to turn number 1 for the 51 machine. Let's stay on the replay here because it's coming up to the moment of disaster. And,
I was confused when the replay cut back to that part of the track. I was like, how did he end up there other than going straight ahead at turn 1?
Oh, it's not straight ahead, but it's basically as bad as it gets there. Rips the front end off. Here's
now,
number 51 GTP.
Issue he is going to have is he has cut a lot of the course. He is not only going to get a slowdown, that's a full black flag for cutting the course, and it's a huge penalty.
iRacing, black flag. Huge amounts of damage limping around the back part of NASCAR turn 4 now is the 51. Get to the pit lane, Connor.
My timing is saying that he's currently 14 seconds up on his fastest lap from cutting the course. So this is going to be a huge black flag for him.
Yeah, I think maybe tried to limp that one back and minimize the damage. That maybe
Could
explains
cost
why he
him
was
more.
on the brakes. As he then limps for his pit
no.
box. And oh dear, indeed, trouble for the 702. David Turnbull there was running quite strongly in the front of the field, and that's been a hefty spin and off-track excursion for the 702 as we check in there. That's Phil Otto now up into 4th in class in the 013 and 7th outright on the road. As we're going to see here what's caught Turnbull a rear. So we've got that Audi trio of now Francis, Chalker, and Robertson in that order. So out of turn 1 we come through. The little Kingston turns 2 and 3. Goes to the inside. Finds the dirt on the right side of the road. I think he's kept that out of the fence, Jay, so he's done a very good job there, but just, yeah, puts the foot down. It plows wide, slides across the road, and it does stay off the fence.
Well,
it kisses the fence. If you're gonna hit the Armco here at Daytona, that's about as good as you could ask for. As we head back to live pictures once again, and well, the first couple of laps after Thomas Hinz got the breakaway in traffic suggested at what was happening here in this race, but it seems to continue to be affirmed here. Robert Northwaite, 7.5 seconds back off your man in P number 1 and still losing time, although Hinzy here, Hinz is going to get a nice bit of pass by on that Audi 90 trio and not get affected as it's Francis in the middle leading Chalker and Robertson to turn 1. He will hang on to the lead of this group. They're fighting over P number 5 in the class here as they make their way through, and David Turnbull's going to come for take number 2. This time Josh Robertson dives left side of the road there. Jay gets out of the way, thankfully. And now Turnbull can line these guys up, but the middle of the road on the run to the kink, that's going to force Turnbull to have to wait some more. Oh, Chalker!
Oh, jeez. That was so close to ending in tears for both of those guys, and Turnbull's lost 2.5 seconds just in those couple of corners from not being able to get past these guys. He's got through now. But you can see in the background there, those guys are not fighting for the same position, but those are P2, P3 in the race. They're losing ground to Hinz during all of this. Connor Brown is away, served his black flag. Guess how long it was for?
Well, I can also see exactly how long it was for, but that was...
That's a long stop and hold. Almost 2 minutes.
Yep, 1 minute 56, ladies and gentlemen. Might have taken some fuel and tyres while he was at it, but actually we'll have to wait and see what he does. If he stays out for a while, we know he combined pit service with that one there. But yeah, unfortunately for him, it's gone all kinds of wrong. He's actually off the track once again somewhere, Jay, in that 51 machine. So, down at turn number 5, he's gone off into the dirt. He's picked it back up and recovered as we're on board with Northway here for this fight for second. Dwayne Burns to the outside, slingshots around, will fire it in under the brakes at turn 1, and he gets clear ahead of Northway there. So the 46 is now back to P3 from being in P1 early on, or pardon me, P2 in this race for most of it. Led for a short moment in that race, but now Dwayne Burns says, my time is now. I'll be the one to lead you around here, as they are going to try and catch up to David Turnbull. And actually, that will be putting him a lap down, I should note. That won't be to pass Turnbull for position. That's actually quite the indication here of how spread out things are at this stage.
Yeah, well, they're spread out between Burns and Hinds. While these two have been, I wouldn't say fighting, but while they've been battling amongst themselves for P2, Hinds are now stretched out to an 8.5 second advantage. So Northway and Burns definitely are missing that draft that they were getting before from Hinds. So that draft is absolutely impeccably beautiful. You want that draft. If you haven't got it, it can prove costly. And my question that I'm sort of thinking in my own head here is, has Burns saved enough fuel that he can come into the pits, maybe take a little bit less fuel than he actually needs to, and maybe come back out with Thomas Hinds?
That will be curious to watch. Do you gamble on an undercut to get back to that slipstream? That would be quite.
You got to do something, don't you? You can't just do the same as everyone else.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. There's only so much you can do with the man behind you there to race with. Nick McMillan and Josh Thomas going at it here down the front stretch. Thomas trying to get a spot back here, and he will finally slingshot past. And McMillan actually will roll out there and finish the position off. So that both drivers from the Kinetic Avatar stables, but McMillan in the sportsman class and Thomas in the pro class, technically not racing each other out there this afternoon, as we do have points. As far as we're aware here, we do have to consider both the sportsman and pro classes within each of the iRacing classes, since we do have a mix of drivers from both majors divisions in both of the car classes here on the track this afternoon. As on board again with Shane Bowen, continuing to lead the GTO class, as Thomas Hinds just has to hold up there for a sec as they make their way through there. That will cost Hinsey about a second, it seems, through the bus stop there. So somewhat costly, you're not wrong, but well, he will probably get that back in due course. Next onto the pit lane, it's James Catchpole in the 021 after 24 laps, or pardon me, 25 laps.
Oh, here comes Northway.
There we go. Robert Northway also in here from P number 3 in the 46 machine. So there you go, 25 laps. No, pardon, 26 for him as so. And Francis around to the number 9 at Le Mans Chicane has tapped the fence, although he's come spat back out the right way there. And looks to have gotten away from the worst of that there. We'll have a quick look at the virtual racing school replay. You can see lost the draft to Matt Chalk, who have got one of the GTPs through, but clears. That was the 022 there.
I think he's just been distracted by that GTP.
Yeah. Made sure the door was open for Tilson on the inside there to get on through.
Too courteous.
Yeah. Unfortunately, didn't get the apex point right for the Audi 90 there, as that's come unstuck. So, Northway in the lane now. 33.5 seconds for the number 46. Adam Preston's just come around at the end of his 26th lap and just entered the pit lane, as is Jake Fox, to take their first pit stop of the race. Northway is heading out as we speak. That's how far back these guys were just in the course of the opening stint of racing here to your race leaders. No safety cars in the major series on these road course races. As we'll see here, Thomas Hinds coming to the end of lap 27 is going below the yellow line. So there we go. That's about the absolute max then we should expect to see, I guess, from the fuel tank in these cars. Now, as you said, if you're Dwayne Burns, what do you do? Obviously, you come into the pits for one, but do you do something off strategy to fight, to give yourself a drafting partner and work off the back of the race leader You've got 8 seconds, nearly 9, that you're going to have to underfuel by, though, Jace. That's very important as your front two continue to work tandem here. Bowen leads Stevens once more here in the GTO cars. They're on lap 26. Pardon me, 25, apologies, of their race. Then get a lap back on those GTPs.
So with the pit stop for the GTOs, the Audi, we're not too far away from expecting them in as well. Maybe another 3, maybe 4 laps. So they're not far away as well. But this battle's been very, very interesting to watch between Bowen and Stevens. Northway coming up to the tri-oval now.
Yeah.
Hinds and Burns are still stopped.
Okay. I think we've seen Northway's play here. Yeah, they go 48 seconds for Hinds, 40 for Burns. Northway goes through to the lead of the race, though. But as you said, Dwayne Burns surely here has underfueled his car to get onto the
He's
bumper.
just matched whatever Hinds has done. When Hinds dropped, I think Burns is like, yep, that's me done. I'll take as much fuel as Hindsy puts in, knowing then that he can save fuel in the draft to maybe get 1 or 2 laps back.
Yeah, take a small L now because, yeah, Robert Northway,
And Northway
has
is
gone
really short fielded.
15 or 14 and a half seconds shorter than Thomas Hinds in his box on that pit stop. Phil Otto brings it to the lane. He too will get 27 laps to his tank there in the 013 machine. And he will relinquish the class lead of sportsmen amongst the GTP cars back to Nick McMillan with that pit stop there. But now that is fascinating to watch. Your race leader is back with Northway, but his mass is at 14 and a half seconds. There's a monumental amount of fuel that he's going to have to add on later on in this race, and very much committed now, you would think, to doing this in 3 stops, and 3 pretty decent stops all the same. So we'll be curious to see what the reaction is from Thomas Hinds over the course of this stint, whether he or how he drives this one from here, because yeah, that's going to be important to, I think, keep our eyes on. So we'll see if Dwayne Burns can stick with him there. Speaking of, oh my, that was one of our Kinect Avatar machines, possibly who would that have been there, going around the outside through the kink. We're looking there at Daniel
Thomas,
Stevens.
Josh Thomas.
It was Josh Thomas. There we go. Thank you very much. So Thomas, they actually had to really work the limits of the outside line there, but indeed got through A-OK.
He almost ended up on the grass, actually, as he was trying to make the move. I just want to point out that since Hinds has got back out to full speed, he's already gained 1.5 seconds.
That car is an actual weapon this afternoon. It makes me wonder what kind of speed profile we've got here today. This is going to be interesting to watch. I mean, as we said, the championship is going to be important to consider, and whether it goes down to the wire here. Remembering that even if Thomas Hinds wins a 2nd place today from Robert Northway, is good enough. Otherwise, it's a 2nd and then a 5th will secure it. So it's only over if Northway can win today, as Hinds wants to get by Julian Mookie there, and we'll have to go the long way around on the approach to the Le Mans chicane. And Dwayne Burns too far back to be able to go through as well. But what that will do is give an intermediate slipstream for Burns, maybe even a chance to double draft, as Mookie will potentially pull up to the rear of Hinds as well. We'll see what he can do here. Although what's happened, Jay, there is he's dropped further on back to about a 2nd apart. So Burns here really going to need some serious tow here on the front stretch of the tri-oval as they come through on one of the Audi 90s there as well. Jonathan Bean there in the 019 they passed by, but Dwayne Burns, this traffic here of Julian Mookie has not been all that much of a help, and Mookie's going to run deeper turn 1. Well, that opens the door pretty nicely there, you have to say so, for the man in P2.
Yeah, but he's lost, what, 0.7 of a second in that whole phase, so he's now back to 1.5 seconds back. In saying that, Thomas Hinds just set his 2nd fastest lap of the race, around about 0.8 of a second faster than Robert Northway. So even though Hinds has taken on so much more fuel, we can see the gap is definitely in Hinds' favour. Now, I think Dwayne Burns is effectively 2nd at the moment. I think his pace, the amount of fuel that he's just taken on, is going to put Burns ahead of Northway based on net position that we'll see in around 100 minutes' time.
I think you're on with that one there.
Ooh, that car looks a bit damaged.
Yeah, David Turnbull's just come back to the lane for the second time this evening. He's followed in by J.M. Thomas as they come down here. And yeah, having had earlier stops in this race, Jay, they've been able to stretch this first full run of the tank. And oh, look at that there. Thomas Hinz absolutely dropping Dwayne Burns like a pile of bricks here in this one. It just looks like that Hinz has got that car dialed in so well. And in a straight line, in this particular, as you can see, Burns is losing ground slightly to Hinz.
Well, top speed at the end of the straight before Northway got on the brakes, he hit 305, Hinz hit 310.
And that tells you a lot.
With no draft, that's a massive difference.
Yeah, you're not wrong. As oh my goodness, down at the second of the hairpins, James Catchpole passing GTO traffic goes off in the 021 machine there. We'll gather it back up just as Craig Tilson's just sorting himself out here, and actually, Tilson will let Catchpole get going again, since Tilson is, unfortunately for him, so far down on the rest of his class, and it's going to be a long day's back for him. So, yeah, Catchpole just as I said there, goes, oh, Dan Stevens and Shane Bowen, your GTO leaders. Ooh. Oh, I didn't catch that there in the live moment when it happened, but trying to get up the inside of your two leaders in GTO, almost getting involved with them there, and that could have been disastrous. Thankfully, that's not the case. They hang on. He goes, oh, goodness me, Bowen in deep into the second hairpin. That might have saved him, though, to put it mildly.
Definitely. I mean, I think the fact that the leaders are probably a little bit more alert to what's going on in this race than maybe some of the backmarkers might have been, that was a blessing in disguise that was the leaders, because they're going to be extra cautious around what's going on around them too. So we continue on. Out of our starters, we've lost 3 of our GTPs. I don't like you making these moaning noises. 3 GTPs. Of course, we had 1 did not start, but Stefan and Mole both out. All of our GTO runners are still running,
which is good to see. The reason I made that noise is because Craig Tilson, having followed in the footsteps of Jake Fox and James Catchpole, having passed the 2 GTO leaders, nearly took Fox around into a spin at turn number 1. As we see here, Robert Northway also taking a chance to get on through here. And there we go, the first what would be scheduled stops for the GTO class. It's going to be Jonathan Bean, 49 minutes, nearly 50 minutes into this one here in that 019 machine. So about 10 extra minutes of fuel aboard those cars. He gets 28 laps done to his tank, as your leader Thomas Hinz is already 31.5 laps into this race. Checking back in with Matt Chalker and Josh Robertson. And, well, Chalker had broken away from Robertson earlier on in this stint, despite the fact this group had been bunched up. And a misshift there for Chalker, I think, on the exit of the International Horseshoe. Allow Robertson through, and just saw there for a second that Alexander Sheridan is next up the road. But yeah, they're a long way back at 22.5 seconds to the number 5 car, as we see here on screen, currently 3rd in the GTO class.
And when we see the leaders come in, look, you can see straight away Shane Bowen is fading off to the side of the track. But as Dan Stevens, in they come.
29 laps to
29
tank
laps.
Then. Well, there's your markers. 27 for the GTPs, 29 for the GTOs, and around 40 minutes and 50 minutes respectively there as up on the jacks they go. And my goodness, those are some of the tallest jacks I think I've seen on the iRacing service. As I guess they want to make sure they've got plenty of access to the wheel arches. Alexander Sheridan will follow your top 2 in. You can see that using all of the width of the pit entry to make sure he pulls that one up in time. No pit speed limiter on those Audi 90 GTOs. I can say that much with confidence, Jay. So you have to make sure you've got yourself a steady right foot when you bring it down the pit lane in these cars.
Definitely do. Chalker looks like he's going to do an extra lap. He's been tucked in behind Robertson and Francis when he was right in the group too. So he's now going to be the effective leader in the GT. Sorry, the current leader in the GTO class. The effective leader is still...
Catchpole! And they've got Northways involved!
No.
Yes.
This is huge.
Oh, when you thought Robert Northway was going to have a chance maybe at making this work, but troubles between Jake Fox and James Catchpole into the Le Mans chicane, side by side under brakes, and the virtual racing school replay tells all here, and Robert Northway straight to the pit lane. No mechanical black flag, but enough damage to see him done there, and unfortunately just arrives on the scene with no time to respond, Jay.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time. Unfortunate for Northway. But that was a really strange incident between those two. Look at this, you see here, this is on board with Northway. Just, what can you do? You can't do anything. You're already committed to the corner. It's the fastest turn on the track. And can't really do too much, can you? You're just a passenger, literal passenger at that stage. He'll have to use his spare car. Changes his strategy altogether. Ruins his strategy altogether.
Yeah, it does ruin it, but he hasn't used the fast repair, Jay. He's decided to...
Well, I think he's already used it. I think he may have used it by mistake at that first pit stop.
Oh, that would be a monumentally... Well, that would be a massive problem there for him indeed, if he has done so. You are the
Stevens has come out ahead.
Indeed, so there you go. Come out ahead he has, and by 4.5 seconds has Daniel Stevens here in the GTO class, whilst we're just wondering about their Robert Northway's predicament. Now, interestingly, Jay, it wasn't in the pits. Stevens had a longer pit transit time and about the same stationary time, if my timing on my end is to be believed. So something has happened here on track once they've come back out. That would see these two change positions. Yeah, 1 minute 26.2 lane time for Stevens versus 24.9 for Bowen. So, there was a bit of a crash moment on lap number 30 for Shane Bowen heading up into turn number 5 to rejoin the oval. And, oh my goodness, an uncharacteristic, unforced error from the number 7. Was in clean air, and yeah, has just gone around. So we'll stay on the replay here, and yeah, got to pick it up down at the return to the oval. But my goodness, that explains everything there. So all by himself, because he beat Stevens on the lane by nearly 2 seconds. And at the next corner, we'll see it come undone here on the Virtual Racing School replay, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, look at the gap that he had. He had, what's that, 1.5 seconds? The biggest gap he would have had all race, and just, I think, fresh tyres, not quite up to temperature, not quite at the working level he wanted. I'll tell you what, Stevens was lucky he didn't make contact there.
You're not wrong indeed. Very nearly did it as well. As you go back to live pictures, and, well, Robert Northway's back out of the pit lane, but 2 minutes stationary in the box to fix his car. Confirmation from Jay that he had already used his fast repair. So unfortunately for Robert Northway, it's now become a championship fight that I don't think he was expecting to have to put himself through today. He's got a lot of work to get it done, and Thomas Hinz is in the hot seat now to make it a very close scrap at the championship finale. As Simon Francis slow there at turn 5 in that number 9 machine, has had a couple of moments in that part of the circuit as we go to another of our Virtual Racing School replay. So it's James Catchpole behind, and he'll go in deep. Francis, just loose under brakes, Jay. Wobbles a bit, almost gathers it up, but in the grass, it eventually goes around fully on him here at corner exit.
Yeah, I think he stalled it too when he tried to get it going, because you see here, there you go, you had to start it back up again. So unfortunate for him, but he is going again, which is good to see. Jake Fox has come in for his second pit stop. Yeah, second pit stop. I was just thinking for a second, no, he couldn't have gone only one. Has to be a second one, as Connor Brown's had a moment at turn 1. So I think the fatigue levels will be starting to kick in with a few of these guys. I mean, we've been racing pretty much an hour now. So still a lot of racing left, but at the 1 hour point, you start to drop in concentration a little bit, and then you sort of pick it back up again with 20, 25 minutes to go. So it's at the point now where the drivers that are used to endurance racing, used to these lengths of racing, that really do start to come to their own. The guys that maybe don't race this length of race all that often, or haven't raced a huge amount of endurance racing, they'll start to see some cracks in their armour right now. And then they'll pick that back up in the last half hour.
Yep, this is the phase of the race where it's all about making sure you look after the car and keep yourself in good hands to be able to have that chance later on in the race. As we just watching here, your top two in GTO having been so close together all this race long. Unfortunately now, 5-second golf it might seem like there for Shane Bowen. Has got a lot of work to do to try and catch back up, but he's going to get a chance here because Julian Mookie in the 39 GTP is trying to get by Dan Stevens, and that forced Stevens the long and slow way around the outside of the International Horseshoe. So there you go, that's about 7 or 8 tenths advantage Bowen as a result of that one there, throwing off the rhythm and make that, there you go, actually a full second and some now as the timing continues to update and this lap progresses there. So there was a lot of momentum lost there for your race leader. Trouble for Jake Fox in the 08 GTP. And looks like he's had a moment up at turn number 6 on this lap as well here, Jay. Just going to confirm for you now. Carbon copy of Shane Bowen almost pretty much. So nothing too major there.
Bowen's gaining even more time on this lap. This is potentially one of Bowen's best laps. So at the moment, his sector times are looking very, very nice. He's gained a fair bit of ground on Stevens on this lap as well. So this has been a very positive one, as Phil Otto's just given up a little bit of ground as he's let JM Thomas through, Joshua Thomas through. Otto's currently 4th in sportsman class in GDP, and McMillan, Preston, and also Mookie also running in that class. Otto and Mookie are in contention, some of the drivers in contention for winning that class. So they'll be looking for a really strong result in this one, in that sportsman class. Such an open class, one of the most open classes within the entirety of the major series.
Yeah, it sure is. To have 5 drivers still in it here with 2 rounds to go. If I'm not mistaken, looking at it here, no other class in the major series can lay claim to that fame, with the exception of the Legends subcategory here in the international region, which has 4 drivers still fighting it out. Another virtual racing school replay. Trouble for David Turnbull, it seems, on the exit of turn number 5 here. And
that's a bit too much right foot.
Yep. Putting the power down there for Turnbull.
Those little cracks that start appearing after that first hour finishes.
Indeed, they are now coming to the fore for quite a few people here in the front of, or in the mid part of the pack, I should say, which is unfortunate to say the least. Back to live pitches we go, as Simon Francis is going to get reeled in by Matt Chalker there down the run into the tri-oval here, and they're now clear as they make their way up into the banking. So these two still going at it, but they've lost touch with Josh Robertson's Chalker. All kinds of deep into turn 1. We'll hand that place back to Simon Francis.
Yep, gives it away as quickly as he got it, so he's going to have to do all that work once again. Craig Tilson is coming back into the pits for yet another pit stop. This will be number 3 from memory. No, it's only number 2. He's just pitted out of sequence. It's just now a scheduled stop because his first pit stop was so early to use that spare car. This is 27 laps for him on that stint. We're not too far as well, if I could speak words. Nick McMillan and Julian Mookie coming in for their next pit stops as well. Remembering that they're also out of sequence. Joshua M. Thomas, he pitted out of sequence at the start of the race. Remember, he pitted on the end of lap 1. But he got himself back on sequence with the rest of the field around him. So we'll see him come in around the same time as we see Hins and Burns. As Dean Mole, unfortunately, after what seems like an eternity, has finally retired the car from the race. We thought he'd retired unofficially, but now officially has retired the car from the race.
He has indeed. So farewell, Dean Mole, unfortunately, there.
Oh, Turnbull's had another moment.
Oh, you're not wrong. The 702 slow on the exit of Le Mans chicane, I think, or is that turn 6 perhaps?
Turn 6, yeah.
The re-entry to the oval.
No, you're right. It was the chicane.
Okay, right. So let's have another look at the virtual racing score replay. So clears Simon Francis there in the number 9, Real Bad Racing, and just going to be, yep, curb,
Looks
curb,
good,
that's all
looks
fine.
good. Oh, that's a bit
Oh,
wide.
just too wide. Just too wide. Understeers on power, and
I think he's got on the power a bit too early coming through the middle of that corner.
Yeah, so go on board with him here and we'll see it again. Because see it. Goes down a gear, actually keeps in 4th and just
Yeah, see, he's on the power too early. Yeah.
plows his way through the mid phase, but a nice 720 flat spin.
He did a good job to get it back straight as quick as he did. Oh, tell you what, that was a bit scary coming back to that onboard and almost cleaning up. I believe that's Simon Francis.
And McMillan to the lane. So, indeed, the number 8 machine currently leading sportsman category amongst the GTP class this afternoon. Or should I say, it's a sportsman division of the GTP classes. Dwayne Burns has just been running. Oh, Dwayne Burns trying to get past Craig Tilson out of the Le Mans chicane. That has just cost him at least a second, if not 2 there. Oh dear. Craig Tilson trying to stay out of the way up against the fence, but Dwayne Burns wanted to get up high and send Tilson low. As you can see, tracks up and actually clips the fence there on the way out for a second. Is I want to go right. No, okay, left. It's going to have to be.
Yeah, it cost him, what, 2 seconds? He did a lap 2 seconds slower than him. So that's what a lot of people talk about. The slower driver, if you're being overtaken, be predictable. And that's just, unfortunately, not being predictable enough for Dwayne Burns. Everyone else has gone to the inside. I mean, good on Tilson trying to do the right thing, but the right thing would have been to just hold his normal line.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, because the thing is, yeah, when it comes to Daytona, sort of, if you can just do your typical line, that way will cause less problems because everyone sort of knows roughly where to expect you when you arrive.
Oh, this is going to turn into 3 wide.
Yeah, for a moment here, Jonathan Bean passed by Dwayne Burns and Adam Preston, and now Preston will stay up high there and allow Burns to slide on down underneath there. And there you go. Your top 2 now a lap clear of the rest of the field in GTP.
Hinz is around.
Overtaker. Oh, you're not wrong. My goodness me. From the front of the field all by himself, Thomas Hinz. Massive damage, mechanical black flag. You'll have a spare car in hand, but oh my goodness, that is something I wasn't expecting there.
100%. This is not in the playbook. This isn't what we were expecting at all. Hinz was looking like he was going to drive away with it, but it's all just turned pear-shaped for him, and now he's got to try and do it all over again. He's lost himself 10 seconds before he even makes it back to the pit lane to start all over.
So, a copycat of... Oh, my word,
Oh,
yep.
wow.
Almost a copycat of Turnbull's accident, I'd suggest. Just it gets loose on him more so than plows, and... Oh, word. After being up on Dwayne Burns, a little traffic will go on board with your former race leader here. Again, also using 4th gear, and it just gets away over that curb.
A tiny little bit too much curb.
Slams into the fence. His only salvation, Thomas Hinz, is that we are 1 hour and 20 minutes from the finish. We know he can do 40 minutes to a tank. This just becomes a short stop for him.
This is the splash and dash stint now, isn't it? The only issue is he's got to take tyres as well, so that's going to hurt him. His 27-second stop. That's his splash and dash done. He'll have to pit at 40 minutes to go.
He hasn't taken tyres, Jay.
No.
He wasn't up there on the jacks on that replay.
He has used his spare car, can confirm.
Yeah, no surprises there. That was an absolute necessity to use the spare car to stay in the race, because with Robert Morthway down in P number 9, this was definitely a case of make sure you've got yourself a chance at the race. So this is all kinds of crazy backwards pit strategy and so forth, but you know, he might just be in with half a chance with the rocket ship speed we've seen from him so far in this one still, if you can believe it, here and now.
Bowen closing quickly on Dan Stevens. Have a look at that. Last lap was 1 second. The lap before was 7/10. So we said that Bowen may have found something a little while ago, and then we also said that Stevens had lost a bit of ground with some lap traffic. There's the evidence. You can see now 1.3, 1.4 seconds between them, but the lap comparison is huge in favour of Shane Bowen at the moment.
Sure is indeed. So that is going to be one to watch in the next little bit. Does this potentially mean that Stevens running that fuel save number, maybe trying to work some of that fuel save techniques into the car? I'm trying to see if I watch the onboard zoom feed from no, I'm seeing a bit of throttle blipping still from Stevens this particular time into the Le Mans chicane, as Jake Fox is looking to go on by here on the exit. I was just trying to see if I could spot on the downshifts whether that right foot was moving around all that much, but it looks to me that Stevens is very much using that right foot to help with the downshift and make sure it gets into gear correctly each and every time, as we both have the zoom feed and a shot out the rear. We come here into the braking zone. Actually, is that Stevens not using the clutch at all?
Not using the clutch much at all, no. I think it's a tiny little bit to get it engaged to start with, and then once he's already got that down momentum happening, then he's not using the clutch much at all. But I think there's a tiny little bit of clutch at the start, but other than that, there's no real clutch at all.
He's clutching on upshift, but look here, he's got his left foot. That's back over the brake pedal now. There.
Yeah, you're right. I was actually thinking for a second that was the clutch. No, you're right. It is. Yeah. That's the brake pedal.
There's the telling tale. That hang on that downshift into second gear in the second of the horseshoes. The car just has to wait a little second to actually allow it to bang, force itself into gear.
Yep.
So he's still blipping it, is Stevens. But
so he's using it there to go from second to third, but the rest of them he's hardly using clutch at all. Third to fourth, fourth to fifth, he's using it a tiny, tiny little bit. But then when he's going back through the gears to get from fifth back to fourth, he has to use a tiny little bit of clutch, and then he's no clutch for the rest.
We'll see here what it's like at the Le Mans chicane. So that's on the brake pedal, the left foot. Left foot on the brakes.
All brakes.
Yeah, it's all braking there. So left foot braking technique here from Stevens, whereas Shane Bowen coming at him like an absolute freight train. Now I'm going to see if I can focus on Bowen here for a second. Unfortunately, the angle we've got with Shane Bowen is a little bit less conducive.
You can see the brake pedal.
You can see it. That is true.
Which foot goes to the brake pedal?
Yes, that is the $1 million question. Coming on up towards the tri-oval, and in fact, Stevens going to let him on through here.
There we go. Now we can see it. Lots of clutch.
He is right foot braking that thing, and I don't think I saw much blipping going on there. So how about that for compare and contrast between your top two here in GTO? Bowen using the clutch, but I'm not seeing blips much, if any, from the number 7, whereas I'm seeing all the blips and none of the clutch from Stevens, at least when it comes to the downshifts. As that was there, one of our Dwayne Burns, pardon me, actually coming back through there, and there we go. Julian Mookie in for his second bit of pit service after that very early stop in the race. He is down onto the lane. He can now make it home with a full tank and a slightly less than full tank from here.
Yeah, so 17 laps for his first stint, 26 for the second, which is the exact same as what Dwayne Burns is on right now. So Burns 27 now on lap 17. So he has pretty much just done the reverse of Burns, and then they'll pit to finish off one more time. No? One more? Two more?
One more
I'm
stop.
not sure. Yeah, no, at least one more stop. Yeah.
After this one, just the one more.
Yep. Whereas Burns will still have to stop twice. Hins, as he tries to come back through the field, Turnbull's had an issue with the circuit once again.
Oh no, on the exit of turn 5 once more. The 702 in the wars and the grass quite a bit there, as we're just focusing in here for a second on your top two in GTO, and it looks like Shane Bowen as well taking the lead. Dan Stevens
taking the draft.
Happy to let him have it, because he's just going to sit behind and draft his sweet merry way along here. It would seem that maybe there's a little bit of downforce configuration you can do to these GTO cars on that rear wing, but Stevens didn't have the pace in clean air, but now he seems to be quite comfortable tucked back up behind Shane Bowen once more here in this second stint. A small moment for Simon Francis heading off the track for about 5 seconds. That's happened at the... Oh dear, he's completely missed the turn-in point for the kink on the infield. Thankfully, was on the brakes to prevent running way off-road in the number 9 machine, but Matt Chalker gets a free place as a result of all of that.
Turnbull comes into the pits to get a little bit of damage fixed. Probably wants a fresh set of tyres. What I was about to say too was Thomas Hinz has set personal best sectors on that last lap then. Didn't set his fastest lap, but he did gain a full second on Burns. So Hinz definitely has the car speed. But that little moment he had at the chicane showing that the car isn't 100% stable as he would like. So this is going to be an interesting next little phase of the race. Has Hinz got enough left in the car? Remembering too, the one thing we haven't talked about, this race started under sunlight. We are now well and truly into the night.
And those Audis don't have headlights.
Yeah, and it's very cold.
It is indeed.
I think the track temp when we first started was, what, 32 degrees Celsius? It's 10 degrees cooler now than when we started this race.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you. Unfortunately, I didn't actually think to check for that bit of information here in this one, given what you said we knew about tyres being, well, they'll just take them since they can afford to under the fuel time. But yeah, it's currently a virtual January here at Daytona. In fact, it's actually the date of, I believe, the 2023 Rolex 24.
Yes.
Daytona, 23rd of January 2023 in sim, and has just gone past 6:20 p.m. virtual time here on iRacing. So darkness is coming in. Thankfully, this track is somewhat well lit, funnily enough, by virtue of the fact it's an oval, and oval racing certainly goes pretty well at night time, and makes for a bit of a spectacle look here. But these Audis on the infield, as that was Dwayne Burns, I'm pretty sure, on the background there, having a small moment off of turn number. Nope, it wasn't. Apologies. Dwayne Burns is well and truly on the other side of the track, flying through the chicane. So that would have been
J.M. Thomas.
J.M. Thomas in the sister Kinetic Avatar car there. The 386 machine. So a small moment for him on the extra 5. Okay. There's that.
In other news too, David Turnbull has unfortunately retired the car after his issues he had earlier. So Turnbull is out, Mole is out, Stefan is out, and also we had the non-starter of Gavin Barber. So we've lost 4 of our GTPs, but 0 of our GTOs.
Continuing to happily plod along, it would so seem here. Currently spread by a minute and a half, those cars, but, well, still on for all these places. As in fact, you can see here your top 2 heading to the start-finish line once again. I've actually had eyes on the man in back of the group for a while. He's just heading up to the International Horseshoes. He's not far off going down a lap on his class leaders here, so he'll have to keep his eyes open on that. There's a driver in P4 in GTO, Jonathan Bean. Not too far off the back of Alexander Sheridan. 12 seconds the margin currently to that P3 placed machine in GTO. So that could potentially get a bit interesting as the race goes on. Although on the last lap around, Alexander Sheridan nearly a second faster than Bean. So things are going to have to change there for that to get a bit more exciting.
One thing that you did talk about before, sorry to cut you off there, Dan, about no lights in the car. One thing about that is it's not only the external, there's no interior lighting either. So if you're not running third-party software like we do see when we see Dan Stevens, you can't see your tacho, you can't see any of your in-car anything. So let's look at that with Shane Bowen here. He can't see. So he's just relying on sound and feel for what revs the car's at. When it's in the dark, you cannot see that tacho.
Yeah, that is going to be interesting. Obviously, plenty of track lighting and also the lighting of the GTP cars coming up behind them over the course
Changing
of the
through
race.
the midfield, like the kink in between the 2 horseshoes, there's no lights there at all.
Indeed, that is the tricky spot there in the darkness for these cars. The one spot where the light does not reach. As while that's all been happening, Robert Northway on the recovery drive was as far back as about P9. He is now up into P6 in class. So things going a little better for Northway in this phase of the race, but still a long way off. Well, he's got 5 seconds, I should say.
Yeah, we're
Indeed.
wondering where we're talking about. You see here, when he turns the corner here, no lighting. Very, very tough to see.
Yeah, just tiny bit going on there. But all about the rhythm, all about the feel. And speaking of Robert Northway, there he is, hello number 46. Making his way past these two once more. And he's 6 seconds behind Nick McMillan, the next of our GTP cars up the road from him. And he's closing at a rapid rate of knots at this stage of the race. So, in saying all that, he may get back to P3 here if his pace continues. Adam Preston's up in P3 currently, but had an absolute shocker of a previous lap at a 1 minute 36 when the other drivers in this group are doing 1 minute 32s. But his car's still in one piece and doesn't look to be damaged, so that's probably a good sign, apart from the speed moment there, as J.M. Thomas has jumped on a couple of...
No, I just saw the exact same thing as you. I was trying to work out what J.M. Thomas is having a little complaint about. He's basically saying, telling people to get out of the way and then saying thank you. So may have had a little bit of issue with those back markers in the GTO class. I believe that was Thomas Hinz just getting past the leaders in GTO, who have just gained a spot outright because they've just put a lap on, or just overtaken David Turnbull's stricken car. So we've now got top 12 in the race being GTP, and the next two being GTO, and that'll soon be the next 7 all being GTO.
Will indeed. As Dwayne Burns is back in the pit lane, and well, actually, that's no surprises there. We're coming up on 1 hour and 20 minutes.
22 laps, so 23 laps. So he's done 27 in the first stint, only 23 this time with no draft. So is that the difference of draft, or is there more to that story?
Remember, he did take about 8 seconds less fuel.
Yeah, a lot less fuel. Yes, you're right. I did forget about that.
It is something you like to think about. So that obviously puts him at this shorter second stop. Thomas Hinz will get a chance to get back into the lead for a bit here, as he took 26 seconds of fuel and repairs on that previous stop for him. We also see that Connor Brown's in the lane. Unfortunately for Connor, he is now 3 laps off the race lead in the 12th and final GTP car still running tonight. Dwayne Burns is rolling, another 40-second stop for him. So that's another short fill.
I'm wondering if he's just going to time now. He's just filling it to time. Knows the exact number he needs to fill at each pit stop to make sure he gets the exact amount of fuel in. Make that final stop a little bit longer, but it also means that he can take tyres at that final stop.
Yeah, it will, and that might be the case here, is do a double stint on 2 slightly shorter tanks here. And he comes back out. And,
6 seconds behind.
6 seconds behind indeed. Yeah, timing wasn't quite working the way I thought it was for a second there. So that'll be one to watch. We know Hinz has got one more full stop to give to us, whereas Burns, about 25 minutes short final for him, I would suggest, minus a couple of minutes. So maybe a half-hour short final for him, perhaps, to bring things home, whereas Hinz will expect the lane in about 25 minutes' time for a full tank in service to finish his race off. Your top 2 in GTO still going, so nose to tail here pretty much. Jay and Stevens well and truly taking advantage of the fuel savings. So I think we'll see him get back out ahead of Shane Bowen at the second stop, I would suggest. And then, from there,
Anyone's game from there.
take it as you want. Yeah, that is true.
Does Stevens need to take a bit of extra fuel because he had so much time ahead of Shane Bowen, or is he now content sitting in the draft, and will he be able to save enough fuel to then take the exact same amount but still undercut? Does he have the pace to be able to pull away if he rejoins the race in the lead? Or are they going to have to go nose to tail the entirety of the rest of the race to see who will win this battle? It's a really interesting unknown at this point.
Yeah. Just trying to think. Let's see if I can quickly think back through.
Dane Burns, with these new tyres, is absolutely flying. He set personal best second sector, identical to personal best first sector, and he's gained 3.5 tenths on Thomas Hinz in the first half of the lap. Make that 4.5 tenths in the first half of the lap.
He's pushing. You're not wrong. So we'll see here. This, maybe that's what we were seeing. Actually, well, I'm not sure for certain, but maybe that's what we were seeing from Northway earlier on in the race. There's tyre issues there for him.
Yeah, we're not 100% sure if he did take tyres in that first stop now in hindsight, are we? I mean, we know that he we're assuming accidentally used the spare car. Maybe he didn't realise that he still needed to take tyres even though he did use his spare car, because that is something a lot of people don't realise. If you do use a spare car, it doesn't change your tyres for you. You still need to do that on top. So maybe that's what's happened there for Northway, and that was why he was having those issues in that latter phase of that last stint.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. Also, don't forget that there is obviously the fact that Turnbull did take an ultra short first stop. Northway, apologies there. With an ultra short first stop in comparison to what Hinz did as the race leader. So I wouldn't be... Oh, excuse me, goodness, that's an unexpected moment there, but wouldn't be shocked if perhaps their Northway, so short on the fuel he was, actually couldn't take tyres as catch poles around at turn 1. I think I saw a second car potentially involved there. Yes, Connor Brown. Oh, careful here, boys. The GTO leaders are coming through. You need to make sure you're either ahead of them and up to speed or out of the way. So trouble between those two. And the thing is that they're on completely different laps of their race. So who's gone into who? And the answer is it might be Connor Brown running into the back of James Catchpole, if what I'm starting to see here is to be believed.
The Catchpole, the lead car, Connor Brown, the one at the back. So yeah, that's exactly what's happened, it looks like.
Yeah, it's all fine in the first part of the brake zone, but then, monumental misjudgment of the braking pressure needed, it seems, from Connor Brown. Absolutely clouts the rear of Catchpole's car, and I'm surprised neither car has a mechanical black flag at this particular stage, because that was a very hefty impact there between them. So Jake Fox gets through on Catchpole as a result of all this. That was for 8th position on the road. So, yeah, definitely clumsy to say the least from the number 51 there.
100%. Clumsy is probably the best word, and there's no intent there at all. I think the positive that those guys will come away with is it was pure bodywork to bodywork as opposed to wheel to wheel or anything like that. That's why we've been watching this here too. There's just been a change of position for P3 outright. J.M. Thomas through on Adam Preston. Of course, these two are in their own races at the moment. So that's why we haven't focused too much on that overtake. But Adam Preston leading the Sportsman division by around about 25 seconds at the moment. So he is flying and flying away. Josh Thomas still a little way back from the other guys, but Preston will come into the pits now. Second in that class is Nick McMillan. He has done an extra pit stop. He pitted early in that first stint for the Splash and Dash stop to use that spare car. Interesting as well, spare car count.
Oh.
I haven't got too many that have got a spare car left, as Thomas has a moment at the exit of turn 1.
He does indeed. That's just what I noted there. Robert Northway's gotten by Nick McMillan in the meantime to take P5 in GTP back. Nice big slipstream as Jake Fox has a moment at turn number 6, and that's going to give James Catchpole back that spot. So all kinds of drama here on lap number 54 for at least these guys here in the mid-pack. Now, as you said there, just under an hour to go. Adam Preston will owe us about 20 minutes of fuel at the end of this race, there or thereabouts. We'll see what his pit time is like. Looks like it's going to be most of a full tank, if not all.
Yeah, he'll have to take a full tank, yeah.
Well, he does the full tank now.
Yeah, he'll still have to do nearly another full tank, or give or take. No, he's done a 13. We're talking about McMillan.
Adam Preston.
Adam Preston, sorry, my apologies, Adam Preston. So he's done a 26, a 27, and this will be the normal phase. So he's on the same strategy as Dane Burns, essentially.
Yeah. James Catchpole also into the pits once again. Now, I would suspect that means there's a bit more damage than we can see there is on the nose with Dan Stevens as Shane Bowen goes up high, and it looks like it's Dan Stevens' turn to lead the pair round once more as they come on into turn number 1 here. So they switch it back up between these two guys at the front of the GTO field, continuing to be unchallenged. 37 seconds between Shane Bowen and Alexander Sheridan to seal out the podium in this class. Now, as I said, we saw earlier that Shane Bowen, catching Stevens, had very rapid paces. I believe that's Phil Otto is. Pardon me, in the 013 is going to
last one to come in for his second stop.
Come in, indeed. Stop number 2 there. So this will be interesting to watch, to say the least, where he pops back out again in that fight with McMillan, Preston, Fox, and the like. We do actually, well, we do need to have another stop from McMillan to get him back towards strategy. Although he might last lap on 39 plus 27 or thereabouts. McMillan will be not too far off. He'll probably be about 10 minutes shy of making it with one more stop. So unfortunately, he's going to have a short splash to wrap the race up there for him.
Yeah, he's going to have to do similar to what the other guys are doing, just in the reverse order. He did 13 laps in his first stint. He's just going to have to do almost full stint at the end. It's probably going to be 30 minutes of fuel, I will guess, right at the end. So as J.M. Thomas comes into the pits to make his third stop, but it's the equivalent of a second because he did pit at the end of lap 1. Now, spare cars remaining, there are not many in this field. Let me do a quick count. In our GTP class, in our Nissans, we've got 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's it. 3 cars that have not used their spares. In the Audi GTOs, only 1 of the 7 have used their spare cars. So the attrition rate could change quite quickly in the Nissan class if we see a bit of biff and barge, hip and shoulder, and incidents in that class, because not many have their spare cars left.
That will be one to pay attention then, since that could become very important indeed. So we watch here as these guys make their way round the oval once more. This time Stevens leading Bowen here, and she's coming up to the Le Mans chicane on their 51st lap of the race. They are now 5 laps down on your race leaders, who actually aren't all that far behind them. So they will probably be lapped in, well, not this end of this lap, but in about, well, early on in the next lap, I should say, as goes one of the Kinetic Avatar cars. I believe that would have been Phil Otto,
yeah,
looping around. So I believe next up will be Thomas Hinz and Dwayne Burns to pick these two up for a lap here. As they continue to stick together here, these two at the front of the field. Actually, no, pardon me, Robert Northway.
Northway, yep.
Actually just going to hang on here because he's just ahead of being, he's just on the lead lap with the top 2 for now, and surprise, surprise, back into P3 once again.
You'll have to give us a pit stop in just a minute. My concern for Northway is he's probably 3, maybe 4 laps away from a pit stop. We know that they get around 40 minutes to a tank. That leaves him maybe 8 minutes short.
Yeah.
So Northway is going to have to either save bulk fuel or try and work out a way to make this work where he doesn't lose too much time in the pits.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. Unfortunately, numbers just don't quite line up at this stage for him.
My thinking for him would be, if he knows he can't save that much fuel, shorten this pit stop so then it's not as costly for him. Thomas around, so just at the bottom of shot, way too deep into turn 1. That was a beautiful 360, continues on.
Yes, indeed. Adam Preston gets through as a result. And the thing is that just a minute ago, he'd passed Preston and then got to Jake Fox about 40 seconds later. He got
Well, he passed Jake Fox, hadn't he?
And he was ahead of Jake Fox into turn 1, and unfortunately loops that all around there at the first corner. So, a bit of unfortunate circumstance there. He'll go past the GTO leaders once again.
Now, one thing I did forget when we were looking on board before, so I want to point something out, is that there is a secondary thingo up here. Now, what is this one up the top here?
That is a boost gauge.
Right. That's why we can't see that one. Because they don't want us to know how much boost each car has. Of course, there's the beautiful dash. I do love the old school feel of the stickers on this car for all of the buttons.
And also 2 giant rotary dials to select your digital dash.
My concern,
display.
though, is how they spell wiper.
Yeah, interesting there. And the German... Oh, Viper. He's also got Vischer above that as well.
Yes.
Well, you can see they've got buttons there for, I presume, some kind of instrumentation lighting. So,
Turn them on.
if we had the Microsoft Flight Simulator experience, in theory, it implies that there should be there's a button there to engage some lighting. Oh, trouble apparently for James Catchpole, and you've caught it just as I've seen it come up for me as well. Turn 6 claims another victim. It would seem here. We'll jump to a replay thanks to Virtual Racing School and see how it's happened, and more pain, more solo drama for the 021, and loses the rear on the brakes, Jay.
Ooh. That was a strange incident there.
It's just gotten away. Has he gone too wide on the right side here and got the grass with the rear corner?
I think so. And then it just wouldn't turn in. So he's too fast, and he's gone a bit too wide. Not turning into the wall or into the tyres. I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the pits end of this lap. In saying that, he did not get a mechanical black flag from that, which I guess is the positive.
If there's a positive to have of it, I guess so. We'll wait and see. Top 2 circulating around, and Bowen happily sitting in behind Stevens here. Catchpole is indeed down on the lane there in the 021, so he will try and get that car fixed back up as best he can. Unfortunately for him, he's 10 minutes short of making it home to the end of the race from here by our understanding of the fuel and so forth. Well, yeah, it really comes down to these two here in GTO, Jake, as to where the action is on track and the games. It's actually not so much the racing, because these two are very much playing the fuel game between the pair of them. And it seems as well, I scratch your brack now. Your turn my turn to scratch yours, I should say, and making sure that sharing is caring here, despite being from Middle Finger Racing and Kinetic Avatar Racing, both with their teams well represented here this afternoon. Actually, interesting to note is that, speaking of team representation, Gavin Barber, despite missing the race start by quite some margin, has recently rejoined the race server as critically there. Robert Northway in, and what do you know, Jay? Spot on the money. He's going to be about 8 minutes short on fuel by our estimates.
Yeah, so the strategy is just not playing into his favour after that incident earlier on from Northway, which is so unfortunate, but it means that the championship will get decided at the championship finale. As it sits right now, things could and possibly will change. Speaking of change, I was about to say there's going to be a change for the lead, but you saw some brake lights there from Shane Bowen. He decided, no, I do not want to go through. And the strategy, strategy plays out very interestingly. Simon Francis goes off track. Daniel Stevens didn't know where to go. He just exited stage right. And Bowen took the normal line, went on through, takes the lead back.
Well, how about that? So, Matt Chalker and Simon Francis, I think they've come together at turn number 1, Jay. So, we might want to try and jump on a virtual replay for this one here, as Chalker's not really backing out of that one there, and Stevens had to get on the brakes to get it to hang around the outside of the infield kink there. Full service for Northway in the meantime at 47.8 seconds box time. But there's Francis off. You see there down at the very bottom of the screen, Matt Chalker. Let's see here. So it's a drag race between the two. They've still been racing in position after all this time here. And oh no, Francis gets it all loose by himself, and he takes Chalker with him.
Okay, so that's not what we were expecting at all. Interesting, Matt Chalker has got a mechanical black flag from that, but Simon Francis has not.
Yeah.
No, I'm a bit confused by that. I thought that if anyone was going to get the mechanical black flag, it would have had to be Francis, because his front guard was absolutely torn to shreds.
Look at it here once again on board with Chalker. It's a wobble and
wheel to wheel.
yeah, wheel to, maybe even bumper to wheel, and that's what's given Francis the lucky win there.
Well, have a look at the front of Francis's car, though. Like, have a look at where that front wheel is. That wheel arch is destroyed.
And I'm thinking maybe it's the corner of the bumper's taking the hit more so than the wheel itself.
Maybe.
And the representation of the damage is a bit so-so. But that's what sort of caused this to happen. So Chalker on the lane. Now, any chance he had a spare car in hand? Yes. Because you said most of the GTOs still had their spare cars.
The only one that has used a spare car in GTO was Josh Robertson. So everyone else still had their spare car in GTO. But I'm not going to say who's got their spare car left in GTP, because we have talked about that before in the past, and it has caused a little bit of controversy. A long time ago it was, but when we did first know that we could see spare cars and things like that, we did announce it once, and someone did something to make sure someone no longer had a spare car. So we're not going to name names anymore, but yeah, there's still only 3 drivers that I can see that have a spare car available. We know who doesn't. I mean, pretty obvious. We know that Hinz has had to use his. We know that Northway had to use his. We know that Catchpole and Brown had to use theirs. We knew that Adrian Stefan used his early on, and David Turnbull, but there's been some others in between that have used theirs that we may not have expected. So don't want to potentially make someone do something within this race that could cause some controversy. Jonathan Ben's in the pits. Not controversial about that. Absolutely on cue. Done 28 laps in his first stint, 27 in stint number 2. And we should potentially expect these guys in at the end of the next lap, maybe the lap after. They did 29 in the first stint. This is now the end of lap 27 of this stint of their race.
Yeah, certainly inside the window to make it home there, these two boys in GTO. So they've got some flexibility open to them. And, well, how's this for... Oh, I'm just noticing Thomas Hinz getting through some traffic, but he's just passed a particular GTP car that I wasn't expecting to see out on track today after missing the race start, unfortunately. And currently on track to put a lap time of... Well, actually, I don't know what this lap time is going to be, but he's 1 hour, 39 minutes behind Dean Moll's retired vehicle. But Gavin Barber has joined the race and completed his first lap here with 45 minutes.
Only 62 laps down. Only 62.
There we go, indeed. So unfortunately for Gavin Barber, he's got the long way to go in this one here. But he is out there and at least circulating for laps in the Classic Daytona 2.4 here, International Division of the Majors Series for 2022. And, well, now in that window for final stops for GTO. Just on the cusp of seeing it for GTP, but not just yet. Need a couple more laps under their belts to be A-OK on that front. As it continues to be the drafting drag race between these two. I think that might have been a misshift for Bowen there, potentially. And Stevens more than happy to manage the throttle application there off the turn, as Adam Preston going to let Robert Northway go here into the tri-oval just ahead of these two there. As they come up on, I believe it's Simon Francis in the number 9, it is. GTO leaders will come up on him here in a moment as well.
Yep, again, last time they came up on him, he was facing the wrong direction. Come in, also used his spare car and got back out on track. So he's been able to get that thing fixed, get back out there. Continue on. Of course, these very, very important points for all of the guys, especially in Sportsman, remembering that there's still 5 drivers eligible to win the championship from this point. So we will have a bit better picture going into the final round, but it is well and truly open, all of our championships in this field for this season of the majors, which we honestly couldn't say last season. Last season it was absolutely dominated by Cameron Dance, but this season, polar opposite, open and up for grabs in each and every class all the way to the end. Europe and America's already sorted though.
That they are indeed. And credit to the guys here in the international region. They've been scrapping it out all season long. Connor Brown to the pit lane for what he would hope would be the final time, but I reckon he's just on the shy side of having to stretch.
He might be okay. He might be okay because I mean he's no offense to him, his lap pace isn't quite as good as the guys at front. So he probably, even if he does 26 laps, that 26 lap might take him the 42 minutes as opposed to the 40 minutes we see for Hins and Northway and Burns.
You're not wrong in there, indeed. And how about this? Daniel Stevens, first of the GTO cars to go to the pit lane, and Shane Bowen has carried on without him. So that stint there in the middle of the run, where Bowen just caught up to him and went past him. Apparently, maybe, again, they did the same amount of time in the pit lane. So Stevens here, maybe just trying to get fresh tyres on first and get an undercut with the rubber. Troubles for Craig Tilson out on the circuit in the O22. He's had a trouble down at the Le Mans chicane, apparently. Oh, he's in the fence still there. Oh, that's not too good. And unfortunately, a carbon copy of Hinz's incident, getting loose over the inside curb at the exit of the chicane. As we'll jump to a quick virtual racing school replay to show it all to you here on the screen. And just have a look at this here, Jay. All nice and tidy for the first half, and then just round.
Oh, good
Unlike
job.
Hinz, it stays off the fence.
Very, very nice job to keep it off the wall. That's what we want to see. As back out and away is Daniel Stevens, 46.5 odd second pit stop. So that will mean that he's fueled up, ready to bring it home. How long will Shane Bowen's pit stop be? He can do it in, say, 45 seconds, 44 seconds. The advantage he's got is that he's running one lap longer here, so he may be able to put in a little bit less fuel.
Indeed. Alexander Sheridan also on the lane there in the number 5 for Kinetic Avatar, ticking up past 40 seconds in the box for him. Approaching 45 seconds. He stops there. He's still going 48 seconds for him as your leader in GTO. Shane Bowen responds to Stevens' pit stop down to the pit speed limit. No limiter though in these cars. Was to manually manage that speed here on the way down the lane. There goes Sheridan just exiting the pits at the same time. Make sure you wait for the green exit cones in behind the wall where we can't see them. And get on with it then. And I believe we're going to have another retirement from this race. Jay Connor Brown in the 50 machine picked up a mechanical black flag. An off-track excursion on his lap 60. No, pardon me. Oh, he's blown the motor. And the craziest thing, he's blown the motor doing a grand total of 30 kilometers an hour.
He's obviously had an issue before he's blown that motor. Stevens comes around. NASCAR 2 and 3. Shane Bowen is already away. So Stevens has lost a heap of ground.
This is interesting because remember we saw Bowen's using the clutch and he's not blipping, whereas Stevens not using the clutch and is blipping. Remember that fact.
5 seconds difference in the stop.
And remember some of our information which was provided to us by Dan Stevens of all people. Blipping could cost you a lap of fuel. So I reckon Bowen has got the equivalent of 2 laps less fuel in that car up in the lead of the class.
This is interesting, isn't it? This is very interesting. Can Stevens gain that 7 seconds? He's now lost Nick McMillan in for his final stop. He'll have to put in a little bit of fuel, but that will give us a guide on how much fuel Hinz and Burns will need to stop for when they stop. Remembering, Burns will have to take less fuel because he came in a lot later than Hinz. Hinz, fortunate that his issue he had earlier was timed to mean that he didn't have to do any extra pit stops, unlike Robert Northway, who we think is maybe 5 laps short, maybe 6 laps short. Very, very close either way, but Northway in trouble, won't make it home. Hinz will be able to make it. Burns, McMillan, Thomas, Well, Thomas will be short as well, won't he? Yes.
We believe so, yes.
Yeah,
McMillan
so
in the lane is the first of the drivers, I'd say, is home safe.
Yep.
And taking that service now.
And Tilson as well, who just came in.
Indeed. Mr. Craig Tilson making his service then, but that wouldn't check it. So does Thomas Hinds come down the lane now? He's on his...
This is lap 27.
Yeah, so this should be indeed his pit lane time. Pit lap time. And yeah, confirmation, trouble for the trouble for Connor Brown. Missed the gear shift to fifth, and I think he threw it back into third gear on the way around NASCAR 1 and 2 with the manual H pattern shift. And unfortunately, as a result, that has completely obliterated the engine.
Here's Hinds.
There you go. Right on cue. Race leader Thomas Hinds to the lane. As, well...
Now, interesting too, sorry, Craig Tilson has received a black flag. I'm going to guess that's for the incident limit. And Alexander Sheridan has also got a slowdown at the moment, so he's cut the chicane. Burns through into the lead. How long does Hinds stop for?
Well, that will be one to watch. Now, on that point, the info tab does say something quite interesting. There is no incident warning in this race. There is an incident DQ limits. But that means, unfortunately, for Craig Tilson, it would suggest...
So that's a speeding on pit exit then, I would guess.
That would suggest, indeed, unfortunately, it would suggest he has a small blunder on pit exit there, indeed. I'm just going to go and have a quick look to confirm.
Concerned about the length of this stop for Hinds here?
Remember, it needs to be about full service for Hinds to make sure he's got the fuel in the car.
You're right.
To make it home. And also get fresh tyres on. That checks out there for Hinds. Remember that Dwayne Burns has done 2 40-second stops so far in this one, so he will owe us slightly longer than what Hinds probably needs to do, because remember, Hinds did 48, 44, and then 26. So we're looking at...
It'll probably be a 26 or 27 second pit stop for Burns. Because he hasn't done that short fill yet.
Correct. He should be in the order of around 30 seconds?
Yeah, 30 maybe.
Because, yeah, 8 seconds short on the first stop and another 4 seconds short on the second stop. Well, comparing his last with the one that Hinds has just taken, puts us at 12-second delta. And if Hinds did a 26 for his short fill, you're actually looking at Dwayne Burns doing about a 36, 38-second stop for his final, which would imply he's not that far away from coming in.
Fox is in.
Amongst other things, indeed.
Last lap, Stevens slightly faster than Shane Bowen, but not a huge amount. I was expecting it to be a little bit more, but still. Yeah, on that too, remember when we said that he did come in for that shorter pit stop on pit stop number 2 and pit stop number 1? He did 23 laps on that stint, so we'll probably expect the same again, 23, which is another 4 laps away, and that leaves us with about 19, 20 to the end.
Wayne Burns doing even Steven stints. Actually, no. So he did a long opening stint, but then a short middle phase, and looks to be shortening up the middle of the race. So we'll see here if that means Thomas Hinds has got the get-go in that number 53 machine to continue to close up the margins. He is on fresh tyres in this phase of the race, which should mean hopefully he's got an absolute rocket ship back under his feet and also got the mechanical grip to have the confidence to push, but, well, we'll wait and see as this stint goes on. As Burns will continue on for at least another one. Here starts lap 71 of the race. Up the front of the field here, just passing by one of the middle finger GTOs, which was Daniel Stevens. I can verify that thanks to the Zoom feed I've got off to the right of my screens here this evening.
That's what 55 seconds look like in these cars at Daytona. So Hinds just coming into the bus stop chicane there, and Burns just at the second horseshoe, the second hairpin. So that's what 55 seconds in the Nissan looks like. Almost all of the track. Craig Tilson's on a very good lap at the moment too, by the way. So Tilson looking to set his personal best lap of the entirety of the race. And Gavin Barber officially has overtaken Dean Mile.
He's now got 8 laps on the board, has the number 25 machine. should get past Adrian Stefan, and unfortunately I think that will halt his advances there, given that David Turnbull did get 44 laps complete in this race this evening before, unfortunately, he would retire from the proceedings. So there's Robert Northway.
He's closing in on J.M. Thomas here, very quick. Interesting about that. Remember, they both have to come in for a splash and dash. So this is a really interesting phase. This battle for third is not done, even though it's looking at 4.5, 5 seconds at the moment. Knowing that they both have to come in for a splash and dash, this battle is very, very crucial right now.
It is, and I think, to be honest, well, not honest, but more to the point, you look at the when they last pitted, it is certainly in Northway's favour. Went 4 laps longer than Thomas did at their previous stops. Julian Mookie brings it onto the lane for his final time this evening. There in the 39 machine. But Nick McMillan is on track, I believe, to take third place outright, as well as the Sportsman win amongst the GTP cars there in the number 8 machine. Only 15 seconds off the back of Robert Northway. That won't cover the transit time, let alone stationary time for Northway, let alone Thomas directly ahead of him.
Hin's just got held up too. He lost around about 1.5 seconds into the bus stop, trying to get past, I believe it was Simon Francis. So that's painful for him. Tries to get that gap down as quick as he can. Currently at 55 seconds, remembering that Burns still owes us a pit stop, but he'll want to get that down to below 50 as quick as he can, because that might be about the margin he wants at the pit stop phase. Remember, too, Dane Burns, he was very, very good in fuel saving in that first stint as well when he had some draft. So we don't know how much fuel he has been saving while he's just been cruising around too.
Yeah, he's definitely got the foot down though, Jay. Fastest ever, 4th sector, and that's why it was his in-lap there. Fires on. That's very quick though at the pit limit. He gets it down. He does get it down below the limit. So in fact, actually creeps it back up quite gradually towards the pit speed limit there. In this case, actually, these cars might not have. Do you have an electronic pit limit? I wish.
No, they do not. Can confirm.
Okay, so there we go. Both cars missing the electronic assistance, and we would be so grateful for otherwise.
We don't realise how good a pit lane speed limiter is in road racing, do we? Until you don't have one, you don't realise how good it is.
Spoiled rotten indeed. So I'm expecting somewhere above 30 seconds for Dwayne Burns here in the pits. Just watching as his timer ticks on by for 25 seconds. Does it get to that 35 to 38 second margin? I think that it should be 33, 34, 5, 6, 7, 37 and a half, or 0.6. Hin's coming around there. Hins will take back the race lead, and now he's going to have actually a healthy margin back to Dwayne Burns. This is going to come down to the wire. Well, it will actually have to go all the way to the checkered flag here. Dwayne Burns released from the speed limit at the pits, 3.5 seconds behind your race leader. We saw in the very first stint of this race that when Hins got clear, he was off like a rocket ship. The question is there a chance that Dwayne Burns can turn the tables here at the end of this race? We'll have to wait and see. He does have a quick car on low fuel. If the last on the in-lap was anything to go by, had a great run around the oval and was able to pick up speed there. Robert Northway, you actually see in between your top two on the road. Northway, unfortunately, goes back a lap down on your race leader now.
And he still has to pit again.
Has to drop further on back. He's likely to drop back to... Well, he's going to drop behind both McMillan and Preston. Should be able to... Well, both will get past him because both... Actually, pardon me, Preston owes us another stop as well. Apologies. And Preston owes us more fuel than either of J.M. Thomas and Robert Northway.
And Otto as well.
And Otto. So, in fact, yeah, Julian Mookie's the first car back there. First car further on back, even more so. So, yeah, pardon me. We'll lose a spot to McMillan and McMillan only, and I reckon Northway can get Thomas. So, it will be P4. It should be P4, I would suggest, for Robert Northway in the Classic Daytona 2.4. And how about setting that up for a finish instead for the championship finale at Homestead Miami Speedway? Northway needed 2nd and 5th to clinch the title, and he comes out of tonight with a 4th. It's going to mean he will absolutely need that 2nd, maybe a 3rd. I don't quite know the point standings. I look forward to be able to cover that one there. It's going to require both drivers at the top of their game pretty much to wrap the season up.
This isn't over at the front either, by the way. Have a look at
You're not wrong.
purple first sector for Dane Burns. Now, he's flying right now. We said it was 3.5 coming out of the pits. Now 2.8. So this is not done. Hins, we know, has got a quick car and good pace and is very, very fast generally. But there has been issues. He hasn't had it smooth. He has made mistakes. And the fact that Burns now has found a little bit of something right at the end of this race, this is a lot more interesting than I ever thought it was going to be.
You're not wrong there. Has Burns prioritized late race conditions in the night, the cooler air, the cooler track, the rubbered up track? Is that what that Kinetic Avatar 19 machine is prepared for? Has Hins maybe been a bit conservative and found the speed in the heat of the day at the start of the race? Or is he still perhaps just making sure he brings that car home in one piece after that incident at the bus stop all by himself? Is that so many possible variables there that we're going to have to decipher and get deciphered for us in some post-race interviews? 27 minutes and a couple of seconds still on the clock here as they make their way around to start the 75th lap of this race here at the Classic Daytona 2.4, at least for those in the GTP class. Shane Bowen, he's starting to check out, Jay. Was a little bit slower on the last lap than Dan Stevens by 0.3, with the gap up at 8.8 seconds. By 8.3, apologies. On my end, you're seeing 7.9. Either way, that's up from the 6 seconds it was when they came out of the pits.
Yep, it's gone up and it's still going up. Generally, I mean, give or take maybe a couple of tenths here and there over the phase of the 7-8 laps that we've had. That gap has increased. This will be a little bit of help though for Dan Stevens. Get a little bit of draft from those Nissan GTPs. Yeah, it's going to be a tough ask for Dan Stevens. He's almost praying for one of those little mistakes that we've seen come out of the cars in the GTO class. He doesn't want a huge mistake. He just wants a tiny little one. Just a little one to bring him up close. And to make it worse, he's just got to slow down.
Yeah, it is going to be important to see how things...
He's not happy either.
Right up against the fence there.
I don't know if you saw on Zoom, but he was fired up when he got that penalty.
I unfortunately didn't look over to see his reaction there, so that was a missed chance to sort of get an eye in there. Interesting to note, he's lost maybe a second and a bit, but not a huge amount.
He didn't lose too much, even with that penalty.
Yeah. So that is going to be a thing to note there, is getting it up against the fence, running the long way around the corner. Does pay its dues. Can confirm whilst everything's been happening out here on the circuit. Gavin Barber up into P21 outright, passing the retired tally that Adrian Stefan achieved. But unfortunately from there, would have to somehow magically fit in 30 laps from here to the end, which is not going to be possible to eclipse David Turnbull's total lap tally, I should add, for this race.
The last lap by Burns versus Hins went in the favour of Dane Burns by about half a second. So we did say that it was very, very good looking lap with very, very quick sectors, around about 0.3 slower than his personal best lap. Interesting that looking at the fastest laps of the race, Burns, Thomas, Northway and Hins have all set 1 minute 32.0s. All four of those drivers within half a tenth of a second, give or take, of each other on their fastest laps of the race. That's incredible.
Unfortunately, just hasn't been the day for guys like J.M. Thomas and Robert Northway to be able to really show that off on the road.
Stevens has gained a second here.
Okay, yeah, he has. So Shane Bowen, last time around, a 45.2 versus a 44.0 for the man in second place. So really starting to go back and forward with pretty big swings here between your top two in GTO. So, yeah, don't count out the man, Mr. Stevens there. And see that.
1.4.
Lost 0.7 of a second on lap 67.
That was the slowdown, yeah.
Did Bowen get one of his own there whilst we were looking at the GTP cars?
Well, I think he's been pretty consistent. I mean, last lap by 45.4, so, I mean, he did lose nearly a second on his own, because the lap previous was a 44.3, so, yeah, I'm not sure. It's swinging. There's lots of ebbs and flows in this battle, which is, I mean, fairly normal in a endurance race with multi-class. It's, yeah, this is turning into a really interesting battle, isn't it? There's a lot of strategy going on, and there you can see the strategy. Trying to go up the track, just try and get that tiniest little bit of draft to maybe give him an extra 2 or 3 kilometers at the end of the straight. That's all he's wanting. He's not wanting much. He just wants a tiny little bit more.
Yeah. Every little bit will count here, of course, with so much
Here
of
comes
the
some
lap
help.
being about full speed throttle, and indeed Adam Preston's Nissan GTP will be some temporary assistance, but assistance appreciated all the same. And in fact, look at the time. Oh, that's actually part of it. I'm looking at the wrong delta. Let's look at here. Gap between your GTO cars, and yeah, that's worth at least a tenth of a second there. Getting that momentary pull along in the straights. What I actually was decided for some reason terminated to was the gap between your top two in GTP, and how that's continuing to go back and forth there. And
Another 10th.
Not quite updated there. There it is. Lap 69 of the race. Very nice indeed. Tenth of a second.
I saw what you did there. I saw what you did there.
Every bit counts.
I saw what you did there. Very nice. 69th lap of the race. Well done.
What can I say? It didn't sound completely egregious when I said it. So.
The battle at the front between Hinz and Burns has stayed really consistent. So since Burns got those couple of really good laps in, Hinz has found another gear and matching for pace, almost identical. Last lap by 32.4 versus a 32.5, a tenth. Well, it's less than half a tenth of a second pretty much between them. The lap previous, almost identical. So there's not much difference between them, but Burns is getting a little bit of help with not necessarily draft, but Hinz is finding traffic at the wrong spots in comparison. It's just not quite enough. And speaking of traffic, you notice here, a little bit of help happening here with Dan Stevens. Is this...
That Gavin Barber.
I was going to say, is that Gavin Barber? Now,
No, it's not.
I was going to say, if that's Gavin Barber, is he slowed up a little bit to potentially try and help a little bit of draft? But no, it's not. But I actually saw, I don't know if you saw as well, as that Northway is coming into the pits. No, he's off the track.
Oh, a moment for Northway on the infield there. Was just tailing your race leader. Thomas Hinz there on that last particular one. And yeah, it's just come unstuck. A big off-track moment.
That's a strange spot to be off the track.
So here we go. Under brakes into the National Horseshoes. Closing up on Hinz. That looks all neat and tight. He puts the foot down.
Whoop, whoop.
And it just goes. And make sure it straightens out. So through goes Hinz. There goes Dwayne Burns. Northway rejoins the circuit. Crucially, he loses a lot of time to J.M. Thomas, who just did a 131.84, fastest lap of the race.
Wow.
Outright there in the dying laps of Thomas's current stint. He's on his 24th lap currently of his tank of fuel. Now, I thought Northway was in straight shot to beat Thomas because he has 4 laps more fuel than Thomas does.
That changes
But
everything, doesn't it?
Thomas pumping out fast laps, Northway's mistake. I wouldn't rule out Northway dropping back to P5 here. Not P4 like I was thinking, as Dwayne Burns going to get some traffic here on the exit of turn 1. Oh, gets stuck behind Alexander Sheridan there. So,
Teammate.
unfortunately, Kinetic Avatar unable to work together effectively there, and that's cost him at least a second.
Yep. So it's now up to 3.8, 3.9, whereas we were seeing it was around 2.5. Bowen as well. Gap Bowen to Stevens, 6.5 seconds.
It's creeping closer between those two. Last time around, Daniel Stevens, 0.2 of a second faster. 44 point, well, it was a 44.5, plays a 44.3, but just updated because Bowen did a 44.7 and a 44.3 again from Daniel Stevens. So there's another 0.4 of a second, and we'll see it come through there. You'll need more than that to make.
Yeah, that was
make a
what I was
fight
about
of
to
it.
say. It needs a little bit more. It needs a couple of laps where it's 7 or 8 tenths of a second. You can keep doing those couple of tenths, but he needs a couple of big gains. So he's got to hope for traffic to play into his favour. If he can get it down to 2 seconds with 5 minutes on the clock, I'm going to say it's game on. But if he doesn't get it down to that in that time, may not get there.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. Is going to be important, and I think things have not gone too well on the opening half of the current lap. I'm seeing 7.5 seconds again between them. So that's blown out monumentally as Northway is on the lane there for final service. And interestingly, it's earlier than JM Thomas, despite both drivers taking a full tank of fuel last time around. So the Kinetic Avatar driver, who's dropped back into the high 132s last time around in the 386 machine here. Yeah, I certainly reckon he's on. And indeed, there we go, McMillan through, and Northway's still filling up quite comprehensively. So I don't see how Northway's going to catch McMillan, even though he does have the better speed. Adam Preston down on the lane. Northway heading off now as Preston just hits his box whilst we're looking here at the 46. So 15.8 litres, 8 seconds of fuel, apologies. And look at that there, 15 seconds. I think Northway at the very best here. This is where he'll end up tonight.
Yeah. You'll potentially get Thomas, but that'll be line ball. I think they're going to have a pretty close battle when that pit stop comes. Yeah, I think they're going to be very borderline, because we were thinking that was going to be pretty close anyway, but it might be a little bit closer now with those 5 seconds that Northway lost earlier. Gap between Stevens and Bowen. Well, it's gone bad. Last lap was 7 tenths in favour of Bowen, and already on this lap, Dan Stevens has lost a second.
That's not great.
With traffic of his teammate.
He now has Gavin Barber pulling him along a little bit here through the infield.
And the infield isn't really where you want the help, though, is it? It's
no,
the oval.
Not. Yeah, we're curious to see here if these guys do actually tag up. It also gives a bit of lighting guidance. And
that might be the only infield advantage you want. So we'll see what Barber does here. If he goes 3/4 throttle to help his teammate along.
3/4 throttle. There we go.
I still don't think, even with this little bit of teammate help, I still don't think this is enough.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting here. Keep your eyes on the interval gap between first and second. So bring it up on screen for you here.
He's going 3 tenths through that section, but he'd lost 1.3 seconds earlier in the lap.
Yeah, this is going to be important. Question is, has Barber just actually run off down the road here? Because he's out of shot now. And
he's just checked up again.
Okay, so
there he is.
He's continuing to monitor the pace here. Put the foot back in it, Gavin. Stevens right in the slipstream now. That is pretty much banging off the limit. That's gained him about 4. That's nearly half a second.
So he lost 1.3 seconds in the first half of the lap, then matched Shane Bowen for pace in the second half.
Right, well, that was certainly a risky gamble. JM Thomas to the lane. By the way, Jay, picked it up here on screen for you all now. This is going to be important. McMillan will go on through to P number 3, but can Thomas get out in a gap ahead of Robert Northway? We think it should be close. 15 seconds is what Northway had to stop for. Thomas, several laps earlier, previous in the pits, so indeed he's up past 20 seconds, 19.4, sorry. He is away and rolling down the lane. McMillan well and truly gets clear. That is no surprise, but it's all eyes back on Northway. He's going to do everything he can to minimize his distance and so forth, but he comes up to turn 1 and he's got traffic. This is going to hold him up here on the pit exit just as Thomas is getting to the exit. And no, pardon me, Thomas is already up at the International Horseshoe. He is clear by 5 seconds. It's contact.
Was that contact, or was he just had a slide in the grass?
Oh, well, I actually don't know, because I was like, what's the gap on exit, looking at my timing up above and not looking at the production feed. He gets through on the GTO traffic, but now he's 6.5 seconds behind JM Thomas. Northway steals the fastest lap of the race previous time by. Does a 31.7. on the Virtual Racing School replay under brakes.
No contact.
It
He
just
locked it up.
snaps. Well, there you go. That's
Pilotto in for his final stop. James Catchpole also in. So we're still
right.
owed a pit stop from. We're still
Julian-
owed. No, that's it. Filotto was the last pit stop. So that's everyone done. Now the Dan Stevens help from Gavin Barber-Trick has not worked. Gap now 9.5 seconds. Bowen has set the fastest lap of his stint on that previous lap, and Stevens lost about 1.5 seconds.
Indeed,
You notice Gavin Barber's just driven away. He's decided, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah, so Shane Bowen continuing to show extended lap run pace here in this one. And Dan Stevens, unfortunately, doesn't have a response for him there. So check back in with your race leader, Thomas Hinz, holding the gap at 4 seconds to Dwayne Burns. And, well, gonna still be 12 minutes here before the race ends, but things looking steady and orderly between these two at the front for now.
We're looking at around 8 laps of racing remaining, which means Burns has to find half a second each and every lap to potentially get this move done. He hasn't got the pace over the last few laps. In saying that, that lap just there, he has gone faster than Hinz. Hinz did have a fair bit of traffic to deal with on that previous lap, though, so going to be difficult. J.M. Thomas, though, is a lot closer to Nick McMillan than we were potentially expecting. We thought McMillan was going to drive away, but Thomas is only 3.5 seconds behind, and based on his pace on this lap, he might get there. This is looking rather strong in the favour of Josh Thomas to maybe steal third place away as Dwayne Burns
and Josh Robertson coming together before turn 5. Oh, goodness me. We haven't seen too much issues between GTP and GTO today, which has really been a testament to sensible driving between the classes. But on the Virtual Racing School replay, Josh Robertson in the 256 Audi coming up through the kink here in the infield. The Audi just runs wide. Dwayne Burns in the GTP Nissan, just in flat out it seems, and unfortunately spins around Robertson, who does a nice little 360 here to mostly gather it back up, but on board with Burns here. You can see at speed, but the Audi has to roll out a bit, and as a result has to back off and make sure everything's okay there. 7.5 seconds. Now the margin between your top two.
Wow. Just when we thought this race was starting to unfold in a way that we may have had a bit of an idea on, things change once again. Now, as I was saying before too, we were saying that Thomas might just be able to catch Nick McMillan. I don't say might anymore. He's going to catch Nick McMillan.
Well, that is good. Interesting to note there. Indeed, the question then is, can Robert Northway follow suit? Every place matters when it comes to the championship finale. If Northway finishes 5th, he has to finish 2nd or better at the championship final to take it or keep ahead of Thomas Hinz for that fight. If he finishes 4th, he's got some more leeway when it comes to the points situation when we get there. But at this stage, 9 minutes on the clock, and he's still about 9 seconds back. He's going to have to make big gains if he wants to see moves, as we're checking in with a couple of the guys still circulating here. Julian Mookie there, who's actually currently up in P7 with James Catchpole behind in P10. Connor Brown has returned the number 51 machine to the racetrack after 30 minutes in the lane to take repairs after blowing the engine.
Not a bad engine replacement pace. Just on half an hour to replace an engine. That's pretty good.
Doing a pretty solid job there indeed. You're not wrong. We've got here Phil Otto, who wants to go and catch Mookie, who's got Catchpole and Brown in between him and his pursuer here. So it's on for a P number 7 in the class.
It's also on for third.
4.5 seconds back, indeed. And oh my goodness me, the pace differential at the moment between Nick McMillan and J.M. Thomas is absolutely a second a lap as they come across the line again. It's a 34-0 versus a 32-1. So there you go. J.M. Thomas is not hanging around, and Robert Northway is going to come to the line to a 32-6. Nick McMillan really needs to find some pace here at the end of this race. He is genuinely at risk of dropping back to P5, and as I was saying earlier, unless he's dropping back here to maybe allow Thomas a bit of free slipstream for a lap or something, but surely with this pace differential, Thomas is through on the way to the bus stop, probably.
Well, the one thing to note as well
have to hope for,
is McMillan is in Sportsman, Thomas and Northway are in Pro. So unless McMillan's like, well, I'm not even in the same race as you boys, you go through, I'm 50 plus seconds away from the next car behind me, I can just cruise to victory in my class. I'm thinking that might be what's happening here. He's not pushing too hard, he's just cruising around, making sure that he's going to win the class. That's my only thinking. He's not trying to break world records, he's not trying to go out there and drive the wheels off it. He's just driving consistent, content, and doing enough to make sure that he wins his class.
Yeah, that is important there indeed. It really makes me want to go and try and quickly find out if I can confirm the deal is. Oh, something's happened. Jake Fox jumped on the radio there with the apologies. Oh, he's entangled with Connor Brown, having just spent that half hour fixing his car up.
Jake Fox, mechanical black flag.
Oh dear, what has happened between these two GTP cars? The dying minutes of this race go to the next of our virtual racing school replays. And so coming up to the Le Mans chicane, that should have been Brown left of shot.
Oh.
Well, that angle is very unusual. It really looks as though Brown has slammed on the anchors. Definitely easy in, but oh, okay, well, the engine's fixed, Jay, but it's certainly not handling straight in that 51 car.
No, something's still amiss, isn't it? I mean, this is his third lap back out there, and his pace has not been great since he got back out there, so there's still a lot of damage to that car. So I'm sure there was nothing meant by that incident, but Jake Fox, as I said, got a mechanical black flag. He has also already used his spare car, so that's painful for him. He may not return to the race from here. Northway still has a lot of time to gain to get to McMillan. He's still got 8 seconds to find.
Actually, that gap's gone up.
Yeah, it has.
Between Thomas and Northway. So that is very interesting there to see indeed. So yeah, unexpected drop when it comes to the speed from Northway in the past couple of laps. Also, we're looking elsewhere. Let's see. Unfortunately, I'm not finding any luck when it comes to confirming championship standings and how they work with regards to full points table. Here, I have found it.
6 seconds now between Burns and Hinz. Hinz has lost a little bit of ground on the last couple of laps, although that is all 100% due to traffic. Just finding traffic at the wrong time, but he has managed this stint a lot better than he did that second phase of the race where he had that moment through the chicane. Across the line with 4 minutes left on the clock, which equates to 3 more laps of racing in this one. 2022 Major Series. Second last round of this year's calendar. And I must say, this race always is a load of fun. The day start, night finish, the classic cars, it always has a real good vibe about it.
Sure does look impressive and pretty neat here as we come to our closing stages of this race. And Dwayne Burns starting to close back up to Thomas Hinz a bit here, but this may just be a case of Hinz really just knows what he needs to do now. There is only 2 more laps to go here as he brings it onto the oval. Will be 2 laps to go, I should say, at the line, apologies, when he gets there. And with 6 seconds of margin, he can afford to not do anything stupid. Look after the car, bring it home. Northway at this rate, I don't think he's going to get. McMillan, still 6.7 seconds the margin there between those 2 cars.
Just gained a little bit on this lap, though.
He has indeed. But McMillan, I think now all he needs to do is just worry about eyes forward.
Oh, well, it's going to be easy now. McMillan's around. Move done.
Oh, no. Nick McMillan, after doing such a good job on track, he will still take a top 5 outright in the class.
And he's still got a minute on Preston as well, so he's looking pretty good.
But that does change the situation ever so slightly for the championship position. Now, reading into the rules of the Majors Series, when Pro and Sportsman classes are combined, these Majors divisions will be scored separately.
Yep.
Which is to say, as if they are in 2 separate classes.
As if they're in their own race. So
Yes,
regardless of if Northway finished 5th or 4th, as long as he's 4th in class, it's still the same.
Still the same. So by that logic, Thomas Hinz closes the gap down by 55 points. And coming into tonight's race, the gap was 90. So we will have just 35 points between the 2 of them before we get to the final race. And well, what that means is, at this current stage, Way will still need to finish 2nd at the very least at the championship final if Hinz is able to win here and at that finale in just a couple weeks' time. He's got himself a lap and a half. No, pardon me, he's coming to the white flag this time by 5.7 kilometers of racetrack remains for Thomas Hinz to bring this one home here for the Classic Daytona 2.4. As he actually goes in a bit hot.
Oh, that's a bit dangerous.
So that's a bit of a moment there for Thomas Hinz. We haven't seen much of that. And look how much quickly Dwayne Burns eats up 2.7 seconds as a result. So a little dicey there. As brings it through the kink on the infield. Burns still closing, but now should be a cut and dry run to the finish now. 2/3 of a lap to go as we bring it round the final part of the infield section. Burns is getting quite close here, down to 2.4 seconds. As the timer will run out to 0 here as they come through NASCAR 1 and 2. Your top 2 here in the GTP class. 2.4 seconds as they round the banking and on to the backstretch for the final time here at Daytona for the international region of the Major Series. Hinz nice and gentle through the Le Mans chicane. The gap comes down to 2.2 seconds, but that was all he needed to do. He's already on the headlight flash as he brings it round NASCAR turns 3 and 4. The Major Series Pro Division Championship is going all the way to Homestead, Miami with this result today. Thomas Hinz takes another race win here in the Major Series for 2022. He is your Pro Class winner in the GTP category division for the Classic Daytona 2.4. It is Dwayne Burns who brings it home 2nd. Josh Thomas, a lap down, will finish this one 3rd. Nick McMillan is going to come to the line 5th outright, but the winner of your race here amongst the GTP cars in the Sportsman category as well. He navigates the Le Mans chicane for the final time. It's now the blast to the line there for him. As we then check in with the Audi 90 GTO cars, and after scrapping fairly early on, it will be Joshua Robertson there who's going to get that win out of the Sportsman drivers in the Audi 90. But there is the race win in the GTP class for McMillan. Ahead above the rest here tonight of the Sportsman drivers taking that Nissan GTP around the track today. And the other Pro Division winner here this evening is going to be Shane Bowen as he navigates that Le Mans chicane as well. Nice and tidy from the number 7 Kinetic Avatar racing machine. Round NASCAR turns 3 and 4 he comes. And, well, unfortunately, not able to fight for the title, as it is certainly between Thomas and Robert, but a well-executed race. Excellent pace in that number 7. Shane Bowen takes the win amongst the Audi 90s here this evening at Daytona, and also the W amongst those drivers in the Pro Division. Joshua Robertson not too far behind. It's going to be 5th in the class and 5th in the car class, 1st in the Sportsman Division here. So top 4 in both car classes going to be all Pro, and then the Sportsman drivers 5th on back. But let's talk you through the race results here at the Classic Daytona 2.4 for the International Division of the Majors Series. Thomas Hinz does exactly what he needs to do to keep things alive for that championship finale. 93 laps on the board. He wins by 2.3 seconds from Dwayne Burns. And class of the field, indeed, they cleared Josh Thomas for 3rd place there by a full lap at the end of it all. Robert Northway, a case of what could have been, what seemed to have been a small error with taking a fast repair early. He finishes a lap down. Nick McMillan rounds out your top 5, as we said, and takes home the Sportsman class win. Also, the last driver, I should say, 1 lap down. Adam Preston, Julian Mookie round out the podium in Sportsman amongst the Nissan GTP ZX Turbos tonight there, with 6th and 7th outright on the road. Phil Otto just behind them there in 8th as well to round out your cars 2 laps down. James Catchpole makes it 5 Sportsman drivers in a row there in 9th at 4 laps down. And Craig Tilson rounds out your top 10 outright and is the second last runner there amongst the Nissan GTP ZXTs, 5 laps short. Jake Fox, P11, is the last of your drivers who didn't suffer major issues there. 7 laps down on your leaders in that Nissan there, Jay.
Yep, and then in the GTO class, Bowen, Stephen Sheridan, your podium, all in Pro class, as well as Jonathan Bent in Pro. Then Joshua Robertson winning the Sportsman division with Matt Chalker and Simon Francis. The positive out of that class, every car finished the race in the end as well. So great to see the GTOs all finishing. DNFs, though, in the end for Connor Brown. He didn't finish after that second incident. Actually, I apologise. He did finish the race. He did cross the line to finish. David Turnbull, though, did not finish the race. Gavin Barber did finish the race. Adrian Stefan and Dean Moll on the next page, they did not. I want to apologise to the drivers. We were going to have them in for a quick chat, but I have got a massive thunderstorm in the background, so we might have to cut everything off short because things are getting very, very hectic weather-wise, as you may have heard in the south of Australia at the moment. It's very, very crazy.
Yeah, definitely not quite pleasant weather here in what should be otherwise springtime conditions, but that will mean we'll chat to these guys hopefully at the next round. The championship finale, the NASCAR Next Gen Chevrolet Camaro, Ford Mustang, and Toyota Camry. Is a Supra? It's a Camry for the Next Gen and Cup Series division. There goes my indeed. There we go. Ford Mustang, Toyota Camry, and Camaro ZL1. We head to Homestead, Miami for 267 laps to determine who will be that series champion. But that comes after a bumper week and a half of broadcasts here on SimSpeed TV. We're back tomorrow night for the second round of GT Open Australia, thanks to, myself and my crew at Aussie Online Gaming in partnership here with Jay on behalf of SimSpeed. Round 2 of the series returns there, I should say. Tomorrow night from 7:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Aussie Car Formula 4 is back for their penultimate round of the season on 8 p.m. Monday night at Barber Motorsports Park. The final round of the Aussie Online Gaming Porsche Cup, Tuesday night at 8 p.m. heads to Sandown for a 60-minute mini enduro. Southern Cross Esports Summer Series, the return of the Summer Cross Esports Championship on Wednesday, the 26th of October from 9:30 p.m. We head to Fuji Speedway for that one there, just like we do on tomorrow night with GT Open Australia. Ozprime Sim Series returns to the GT3 cars on Thursday night at Indianapolis's updated scan of the road course. And then we do actually have another broadcast on Sunday, the 30th of October, round number 3 of GT Open Australia, a double header back-to-back when we head to the Nürburgring Nordschleife there as well. But then we've got ODSC 360 title on Wednesday, the 2nd of November. Then we can return to the Major Series, the championship finale at Miami. We've also then got the return of the penultimate round of the Virtual Racing School V8 Scops Series for 2022 on that same weekend as the Majors, Sunday, November the 7th, or 6th, I should say. There, we'll also have Logitech G V8 Scop supports on Friday, the 4th of November. But that's just a bit of a highlight as to what comes up here on SimSpeed TV in the next 2 weeks. Until that date, Saturday, November the 5th, thank you all for joining us here for the Major Series. Apologies once again to the drivers who usually expect an interview. As we said there, Jay obviously needs to get off here, so I'll keep things short and sweet. Thank you all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the action. Congratulations again to Hinsey, Nick McMillan, Shane Bowen, and Joshua Robertson for their wins in car classes and major divisions. We'll see you again for the majors in 2 weeks, if not sooner, for everything else here at SimSpeed. Take care until then. My name's Danny Eamon, Jay Kennedy alongside me on production and commentary. Stay safe, and bye for now.
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.